Good evening and welcome everybody to round 4 of this year's ASR Supercars Championship. We've come back across the ditch from New Zealand. We're now back on Australian soil and we're in northeastern Victoria. There's only 2 camps that can be used to describe this track. The love it camp and the hate it camp. There's no fence to sit on, therefore there's no splinters to be in your backside from being indecisive. You've got to put both feet into one of these camps because a number of the drivers tonight really don't mind the challenge at all that is presented by Winton, and some of them absolutely hate it. But for the ones that do hate it, they've got to put all that aside for one night only, knuckle down, concentrate, and keep them points ticking over on the point score, because at the end of the day, if this round isn't your drop round that's on your point score at the end of the day, then another one will be. Brody, I think that's probably the best way to describe tonight, isn't it? It's make the best out of a bad situation if you don't like the track and move on. Exactly, yeah. For those that dislike Winton, and there is a pretty healthy camp of it, it would seem. Also, I should probably say hi, I'm Rody. It's good to be back. Yeah, for the guys that dislike Winton, and there is a healthy amount, it's unfortunate. It's quite a nice track, but I'm biased being raced here IRL. 100%. It's just to push through, get the best out of tonight, because some people might already be planning this as their drop round, but you really still want to leave an actual drop round opportunity up your sleeve as we get towards the back end of the season. So yeah, it'll be a battle, and as we're going to get to tonight, this is going to be a battle of a track based off of how people went in Super 2 last week. Yeah, you're not wrong. We've got some really interesting feedback from a number of the drivers in Super 2 and Super 3 about how that night went, and that's going to translate into tonight. Of course, it's a triple header format, the same type of format that the Super 2, Super 3 guys in the development series run every round. But more so tonight because everything is rapid fire, comes really, really quickly. And on top of that, the triple header rounds, they're only 50 Ks long for each race. And that is 10 kilometres longer than the development series races were here a week ago. And the development series guys had the problem beginning with T-Roadie, which is tyres. Absolutely. Yeah. Tyres and more tyres. We're going to be discussing that at length, I think, throughout a good part of tonight's broadcast. Yeah, I was there firsthand dealing with it. I took my first and second race wins in class in Super 3 last week, and time management was the name of the game. A couple of guys pitting very early, it would seem. A couple of guys pushing it to the end and finding they didn't quite have it. Ben Hall was one from memory, actually, who was bitten by the tyre life bug. So he's in a good position, as are some of the other guys that have either dual run in Dev Series and Supercars, or some of the guys we've offered wildcards to, which is a first for this round this year, who have the experience on the soft tyre around Winton in a race length such as Super 2. They can then use that to inform their decision-making for Supercars. Yep, you're not wrong there. We'll allude to the people that were offered the wildcard and that not too far into tonight's broadcast. But for the moment, let's have a quick look at the Winton Motor Raceway. As we said, we're in northeastern Victoria. We were in Hamilton last time out 3 weeks ago. We hone in on the closest city, which is Benalla. There it is. We take a very short bounce just up the road on the other side of the Hume Freeway, and we come to this place. Of course, you can see there, it has 2 layouts. It has the club layout, which is the shorter layout, and then the extension was added in the 90s with turn 10, 11 and 12 forming up the 3 kilometre circuit as we know today. Have a look at that, Rody. That's records I couldn't believe when I first saw that were still in existence. And we've only run this place a couple of times, but they go all the way back to the very first year of existence for ASR, what was AMS Oz back in the day. Fair chance to say, I think they're going to tumble tonight. They are, yeah, both records set by Brenton Hobson back in 2018, who took the title pretty comfortably from my memories looking at the point sheets, but yeah, the cars have gotten a little faster since then, and the drivers have definitely gotten a little quicker since then, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that toppled, and to be fair, I wouldn't be surprised to see a few guys bump below those numbers in both qualifying and even possibly the race. But the race, as I said, will depend. We've talked about tyres, and we'll talk more about tyres, and that will actually affect the race pace potentially.
Yeah, it will. And I mean, we're seeing some numbers that are getting into the 21s bracket in qualifying, and some race trims in the high 22s and low 23s. So I think those two records will be given a fair old shake tonight. The race record, I think, is the one that's probably going to be the most interesting to see if it gets broken or not, mainly because the tyres will be the big unknown as to how drivers need to treat the rubber under their four wheels of the motor car. And that will then decide, if someone off the front, I think probably someone off the front couple of rows of the grid probably has the best chance of breaking that record. We've already seen throughout the development series that running in the traffic is a bit of a problem here. You tend to chew through the tyre life quite a lot quicker than you do if you're running on your own. But there's a whole range of weird and wonderful permutations as to how this could unfold tonight. And what is actually about to unfold in the next few moments, Rody, is qualifying.
Yeah, so this will be a good opportunity for the guys to get out on track. Obviously, they've been on track in the practice session, but a good opportunity to get out on track with some cars on some pace laps. It'll be interesting to see how drivers want to split this one up. The track is long enough to get all the cars on the track, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some snakies and a bit of queuing coming through the last couple of sectors to get for everyone to get a run. Whether people are going to, it's a relatively short lap, so whether we're going to see, an early run and a late run, whether people are just going to go out there and just lap until they run out of tyre. There's a few options out there, and as we see, there's already a fairly healthy amount of people lining up at the end of the pit lane.
Yep, I was about to say there's a few cars just sort of getting ready to go, but we have gone into our wonderful little friend, the sink. That's what we've gone into right there. So you can see a few drivers have already started to try and get themselves organised for the start of qualifying, but we have to wait for the game to get itself in order. I thought actually it had happened because I'd seen the timer was sitting there for a few moments and then started to tick down, and I thought, okay, we're just about ready to go. And no, not quite.
No. And it's a tricky devil, something that we've only sort of come across recently, and I'm not sure it's an affirmation of the size of the grid that we're pulling in, or whether it's just old game doing old game things, but should be done pretty soon, and we should be getting away. Just looking in the live chat, and if you are here watching the stream, chime in, leave a comment. Mr. Walshy 73 reckoning that this track makes Macau look good.
Well, I think he's had his tay in the sun, hasn't he? Because he actually was an advocate for Macau back in the day, and he's had the run, and then it's done. So that's essentially it for Macau, I think, nowadays. Here we go. We have got qualifying now progressing, and here comes the field. So everybody out the track. Word on the wire is you'll probably be able to get about a half a dozen laps maximum in the 10-minute allocation. There's a little bit of slotting in going on there. Trio of Mustangs, Burke, Ben Hall and Cam Rutledge, I think, was leaving the lane just then. And then here comes the rest. Everybody's sort of trying to find their way on track at the moment. Still a few drivers to leave the lane. 23 in total in the server tonight, which is a good number. Great to see the good turnout. I know there's a few drivers that have had some prior commitments, not able to make it tonight, but we've got a fairly handy number of drivers out there, and it's good to see the continued, patronage of all the ASR drivers continuing to come back and make the numbers over 20 cars around, which has been a bit of a hallmark of everything in the last couple of years. It's been quite good since the pandemic happened, and then it's continued on even with the pandemic to be perceived to be settling down somewhat.
Yeah, and it's sort of been a bit of a jumble from the admin point of view, I suppose, as well as just trying to predict what return to normalcy would do. It's not like ASR's wide history is only under lockdowns and a COVID-influenced life. We started in 2018 and kicked through 2019 before any of this kicked in, and it's just seeing whether some of the new stuff that we've done works even with the reduced driver cap, whether we have to go back to some of the strategies from 2019 or look at a third option. But yeah, just to lightly breeze over that topic. But starting to get some drivers putting in laps now, just trying to figure out who's actually at the front of the queue.
Dane Liccardo is the man who's at the front of the queue at the moment, and he's just tripped the Sector 1 timing split just between turns 5 and 6 at a 28.860. So not the fastest Sector 1 time we've seen throughout practice during the week, but it's at least a benchmark to put down and something to improve upon. Keeping an eye to see it, actually the purple sector time is actually changing hands quite rapidly at the moment. It's down to Luke Rosella at 28.354, so it's a full half a second quicker than Dane's marker that he initially was, of course, the went to set that one for the benchmark. 29.72 the middle sector for Liccardo, and there's actually a fair old gap behind him. I think Daniel Cox and Will Devonish the next men behind him on the road. Indications are you probably want to be in the 22s is where most of the better qualifying times are going to be. Liccardo's at a 23.3, so not too far away from that particular time.
I will actually say something that's just come into my mind that I'm bringing a refresher on from you. Is I recall, and this will potentially become relevant to qualifying. I recall it being reminded to us last week in Dev Series that the tyres you qualify on are the tyres you start your race on. Therefore, if you were going to race on the hards, you had to qualify on the hards. Does that rule then also apply to supercars?
No, that's actually a rule that's different this year. So for supercars, you're allowed to qualify on whatever tyre you want to qualify on, and you can then start the race on a compound of your choosing. That was a change that I remember seeing Lewis put this into the admin chat a little while ago, and he actually said, unlike supercars where it is in fact a freedom of choice as to what you actually want to do. So you can go out there on the soft tyre, blaze away, set a really, really quick time, and then if you want to run the hards in the race coming up in about 10 or so minutes, then you actually have the entitlement to do that. The localised yellow flag was just there very briefly for Lockie Burke. It looked like it was Braxton Stancliffe. It was just off the road, and Burke's actually not looking too bad at the moment. Nearly 2/10 to the good. That would move him up actually ahead of Liccardo, to move him ahead of Higginson. It would put him onto the tail of Kurt Stenberg if he can pick up another tenth or two in this final sector.
Just spotted a small incident for Tim Redmond under brakes into the first of the section. I think we can use a stream-friendly term called the gum tree, but just getting himself out on the curb and locking the rears. And I certainly see if people are doing that, because that's a very tricky section there. You're changing direction, you're possibly changing up a gear, and you're also then trying to get on the brakes, all in that very short stint of time. So that'll be a spot to watch during the race. But top five as it currently sits is Luke Rosella, who's done a 1:21.579. Close in behind is Will Devonish. Then we've got another half a second gap back to Tim Redmond, who I was talking about earlier. Kurt Stenberg currently fourth, and a bit of a surprise package, Ben Hall up in fifth.
Another surprise packet behind as well. Cam Rutledge not too far behind Hall. Actually just made a meal of turn 5 and is now touring the grass. So he's done for that lap. He'll go back, pile on a fresh set of boots, and he will go out again. He's actually not too far behind Ben Hall, Cam Rutledge, and right in there with this man, Nathan Higginson. Brendan Ross is in there as well, so there's a really good gaggle of cars right on the back end of the top 10. You can see from about, fifth on, actually make it even Stenberg. When Stenberg we expect to improve, fourth on back to what is essentially now 11th. Make that another man in the group there. Brenton Foley's just jumped up to 7th place, so he has joined that battle group. Here he is on screen, and he'll come up to the first sector timing intermediate very shortly. There's Liccardo off the road. Still got time for another lap or two, although Foley pitched a break on the run into turn number 4. Does that hurt his sector 1 time here? It does, not by a huge amount though. He's only a fraction away from his own PB. Former championship leader before the last round at Hamilton as well. He's rescinded that lead to Will Devonish. That essentially was a drop round for Foley. He was unable to make that one, so he drops 0 points. That's how it works. You're allowed to drop your lowest round. If your lowest round is 0 points through non-attendance, you're allowed to do that. Oi, big sideways. He had to catch that one there under brakes, and that will have cost him, or what little of his improvement he had actually made.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, this track, because It sort of plays in both strategies where you want to try and maintain the momentum through the corners. All very very solid off the curb there for Foley. You want to maintain the momentum through the corners, but there's also the addition of the last sector, which is all about getting your exit off the corners right to maintain speed down the straight. So it plays into a few different hands of strategy and a few different setup directions as a result. And Foley's going to go out and get another crack, and we're not far off of drivers starting their last laps in this session.
Yeah, you're not wrong. A couple of drivers yet to set some time. Steve Warwick, Corey McFarlane, they're the only ones that are not yet able, or haven't set a time. Corey McFarlane actually hasn't even gone out the lane. I'm actually just trying to remember, Rody, you might have to double check me if I'm wrong here. I know we had a points penalty through an incident at Hamilton. I'm not sure if he's actually got an ROG for this race or not, as Termo goes around in a big circle and off onto the grass.
Just checking for you. No, it was only a points penalty. So possibly missed started qualifying and is here but not here, or got called away for something or other. Speaking of drivers missing qualifying, I did just get an inbox from Colin Warwick, as one driver, Will, looking to see if he'd be here in time. He just made it, but unfortunately just too late to make qualifying, so he'll be starting off the back of the grid for race 1.
Starting off the back of the grid with Matt Cecil, who's one of the substitutes for this round as well. So Matt, I did see him in the server a couple of moments before qualifying got underway, and he has dropped out. So there'll be a 24-car grid as it seems for the moment. Current provisional pole sitter, Luke Rosel's on his way to turn number 7. This is the section of the track you were talking about a few moments ago. There's a big old gum tree off to the left. You'll see as it dives into shot here. No, Rosella pulling the pin on that one. Not happy with the lap, and he won't get another run. So he's a 21.0, so it's a new track qualifying record for Luke Rosella. He is going to be, I think, pretty much safe for the moment for quali. Small improvement for Steve Warwick, goes up to P17, and he's had a fair old, a bit of a torrid time in the last couple of weeks. Brendan Ross, that's actually a surprise move up. Brendan Ross was 9th about 30 seconds ago. He's moved up to position number 3, so a very smart lap time. What's he got there? A 1 minute 22.6, sorry, 1 minute 22.1, sorry. So he's moved up the order quite comfortably. Got the headlights on, which means he's on another flying lap. This will be his last lap. At the second timing split, he's actually up but on his own time, not up on the pole time. Not enough to threaten Will Devonish, though, at the moment. Be enough to move him a little bit further ahead of Tim Redmond, insulate him from any potential last-minute laps that Redmond can do. Keeping an eye on Tim Redmond, actually, to see if there is a change on the front row here. Redmond is also up at second sector split, so this will be an interesting battle to watch for that one. Ross loses momentum, does not improve. Here comes the pack and save Mustang of Redmond. He's got one corner to go, using as much of it as he dares. A little bit of grass on the exit curbs, and not too much after that. Into the line, and he swaps positions. That's a good result for Redmond. Moves up to the other side of the grid. Row 3 at the moment is comprised of Brenton Foley and this man, Dane Liccardo, and they've swapped positions on their sides of the grid too. Liccardo, no improvement. Foley is no improvement. Ben Hall, he doesn't improve, and I think most of the drivers, I can't see anybody else out there currently looking like they're setting some laps at the moment. I think everybody might just about be done here, Rody.
Nathan Higginson was the last one, but I think, no, he is going to go. Okay, he's going to continue with that. He was 3/10 down at the second sector, so I thought he might have pulled it in from there, but whether he's had a sloppy run through the the last sector before, he can maybe win that back, and no, only made back another 10th. So, but that's still a top 10 for Nathan Higginson, which is a pretty good start for him.
It is. I actually think that might be his first top 10 of the season, I think, and maybe his first top 10 for quite some time in the Supercars. It's a bit hard to recall what his best qualifying effort was. We'll have to go and check that out in between times. So, pole to Luke Rosella, 1 minute 21.025, and a new circuit record to boot from Will Devonish, Tim Redmond, Brendan Ross, Brenton Foley, Dane Liccardo. Now, just from memory, they look like, I believe they're all under the old track record, or very close to it. Kurt Stenberg in 7th, so not a great run for Stenny, but he's in the top 10, and that's probably, I think, what you can take out of that. Ben Hall, Cam Rutledge and Nathan Higginson. I think if you qualified outside the top 10, Rhodey, you might be in for a bit of a long night in this format.
Possibly. It does also depend on this. It isn't the race format that you think, oh, there's some strategy at play here, but there will be some strategy at play. And look, all it takes is to be ultra conservative with the softs, and we can. Well, actually, yeah, we'll go into that detail a little bit during the warm up on just how conservative you're to be with the softs. Whether you gamble with the hards, which are a little bit slower, but you don't to stop, or whether you think dual stints with the soft tires are the best option. I reckon if you can push through the hard tires, they're probably going to be the best option, although they're not going to be the most pleasing to drive on.
No, that's the right description actually as well. While it'll get you the longevity in terms of not being able to have to stop for the race distance because there's no issues with fuel, it's all about tyres, they will feel a bit slow compared to everybody around you. But that being said, you're going to have to look at your race facts and you have to work out what your transit time numbers, which we actually have some of those rough numbers, and work out how much time it's going to cost you in the pits if you want to make a stop under green flag running, or if a safety car comes out, where your benefit's going to be. We'll touch base on that very, very shortly. For the moment, let's have a look at the point standings as it sits right now. Thanks to Cam Rutledge Electrical. It's a great sponsor to have on board for this year. We've got the two electricians. We've got Cam Rutledge Electrical and we've got Beyond Electrical as well over in New Zealand. There is your current point standings as they sit now for the drivers. We said that Brenton Foley had ceded the lead of the championship by virtue of missing the Hamilton round. He's fallen down to 6th as a result of that. So Will Devonish takes over the lead of the championship. And you can see there his lead overall is 32 points over Kurt Stenberg. There's not a lot in that at all, and a further 40 points back to Tim Redmond. And then they've got a pretty handy gap on the Pixel Sim Sports pair of Wedding and Ross, who are surprisingly close overall, Rhodey.
Yeah, they're a lot closer than I thought, than probably even they thought they'd be. They've both taken turns at various points in the year shooting down their odds and their expectations for how the season would go. But no, they've both finished pretty well. They both had top 10s nearly every round except for Rossi, who had a pretty average round at Simmons. No, they've got the points where it matters is the important bit, picking up some good results in some of the longer length races, which awarded them more points, and only 2 points separate them, which is also helping to put them at the top of the team's points. But we'll get to that in a bit.
Yes, we will. We'll flip over the page in just a few seconds, and then there's the balance of the top 10 there. There's still a few drivers that are very, very close on points. You can see right down the order there, you've got Curtis McManus, or Termo, as he's known to his friends. Daniel Cox and Joe Mugford, who's surprisingly absent tonight. Haven't actually heard to see what's happening with Joe. But he's had a fairly good start to his rookie campaign in ASR Supercars. And then Dane Liccardo starting to charge back into points contention in the top 10. Had a really good, strong result at the last round at Hamilton. And he's carried that over with a good qualifying result here. I think he was 6th at Hamilton, and he's 6th, for a race result, he was 6th at Hamilton. He's P6 on the grid tonight and in a fairly good position to continue his points scoring charge. As we go over the page, and that alludes back to your comment a few moments ago, Rhodey. They're not quite top of the pops just yet, the Pixel Sim Sports crew, but they are there or thereabouts. They're not too far off the points lead.
Yeah, they've obviously both consistently done pretty well to be where they're sitting in the drivers' points. It's not quite enough at this stage to deal with Will Devonish and Termo. Will obviously having had pretty cracking pace so far this season, and Termo's coming on strong. He's definitely earned his promotion to the lead CRE team, but maybe not quite as consistent as at least as his teammate, and not quite scoring quite as highly. But they are doing just enough to hold off. But it is pretty close run race between those two. You've got to go back another 300 odd points to get to KSS Team Tanifer, which is the third in teams, which is the Team Redmond and Enter Snipes Mustangs, with Kurt Stenberg taking 4th for Trans-Tasman Racing and Seri Motorsport making 2 CRE teams in the top 5. That's Cam Rutledge and Steve Burko. Speaking of Steve Burko, to allude to tonight. Steve Burko is not going to be here, but scoring team points for that car will be Matt Cecil.
Correct. So there were 4 drivers that were offered some wildcard entries into the series tonight. They were Zach Brown, Phil Boak, and Justin and Matt Cecil. The only one of those who actually took up the offer was Matt Cecil, and he was actually going to just drive as a wildcard entry, and Steve Burko had to withdraw for personal reasons, and so they've opted to get Matt Cecil into that car to score some points. And I think Matt's not a bad steerer. He'll be off the back, so be looking just to keep it fairly clean and consistent and just bring the car home and bank the points. That'll be, I think, all that he's looking to do for this one. Zach Brown was actually on his way to Sydney, and then I think whatever he was going to see in Sydney, I believe, was cancelled at a late minute notice. I saw a little pop-up about that today, so I think he'll be ruining his opportunities that he's didn't get a chance to race and he should have stayed at home, but he said he was still going to Sydney anyway. And Phil Boak, ironically, is on his way to this very circuit in real life, because that's where Supercars is this weekend.
Yeah, so shame for Phil and Zach both not make it. Yeah, Zach was heading to see some speedway action, if I recall correctly, and that got cancelled relatively the last minute, but he'll still have a fun weekend out in Sydney. And I haven't actually heard anything as to why Justin didn't jump in either, but now there'll still be options throughout the year. This is the first time that we've activated the wildcards, now that we've had a chance to let everyone get settled in their new homes. The only sort of slight, I suppose, for Matt is that it's just been a little while since he's last been in a supercar. I think looking at my graph, the last time he was running. Oh, actually, maybe not. I say that he actually did finish at the last 2 rounds last year in the Kelly Grove Racing guest car. So he does have some recent experience in the supercars in terms of the race calendar, but it has then been another 3 or 4 months since we held the last round of last year. So the cars aren't too different, but setups are an option, and you can go a lot of ways right. You can go a lot of ways wrong with a setup. And another thing, although it might not necessarily play in for Matt, is the inability to use TC or ABS.
Yeah, well, that's an important thing for him too. It's been known for a while, and last year the traction control was turned off, so he's got the experience of using the traction control settings in their correct setting for supercars. It'll just be getting used to the ABS bit, and I believe a number of drivers in the development series have actually been experimenting with using the real-life supercar main game settings. So if they do get called up for a wildcard entry, they aren't too far behind in terms of their skill set. So that's a rather important thing. And you're right, it's been the first time that we've offered a wildcard entry this season for people, and I guess we needed a little bit of time because of how different the series are this year. There's been quite a change for both the development series and the main game series, and we needed a little bit of time to sort of settle that in, bed everybody down so we could understand how everything was running and how everybody was racing, and get an idea and a feel for how everybody was faring before we decided to offer those wildcard spots up. So it's good to see that we finally got a chance to put some of those up, and it still results in a fairly healthy grid and a fairly healthy turnout. So guys, for the development series, please keep racing as hard and as fair as you have been, because no doubt your names will come up in the not too distant future, I would imagine.
Yeah, the only thing to note for those guys, anyone who wanting to have a crack in Super 3, by all means have a real go at it, but the wildcards do only apply to the Super 2 drivers. And if you're quick enough to go wildcard, you probably should be in Super 2 to begin with.
Yeah, correct. That's how the development series works, is people that enter Super 3, if they're deemed to be too quick for Super 3, like if they're mixing it up with the front runners in Super 2, then they'll be essentially moved up to Super 2, and then that's when they'll have an opportunity to run in the main game, is that if they're good enough and clean enough and consistent enough to do the laps and race fairly around everybody, that's how the decision is made. It's not made on basically people winning every round or podiuming every round. It's all about the racecraft and the conduct and so on and so forth. And that's why in occasions, I think last year we actually saw Brian Walsh do a wildcard appearance at Symmons Plains, because he basically knew how to let people through if he was being lapped, and knew the protocols and the procedures and everything, and that's what we were looking for at the time. So it's good to see that even people down the back were able to get a wildcard offer just mainly because they were doing the right thing. So that's all we asked for, everybody, and that's what we look forward to seeing. So with a bit of luck, we're not too far away from seeing some of that in tonight's proceedings. We did mention it's a triple header round, so of course there's three races back to back. So you will see that there will not be a second qualifying session. It basically is the same setup that we ran for Symmons Plains about 6 weeks ago. So you'll find that there's the one qualifying session which sets the grid for race 1. Then the results of race 1 will transfer into a grid for race 2. The results of race 2 transfer into the grid for race 3. And then at the end of the night, we decide who we want to bring in. We don't necessarily bring in the top 3 from every race. We'll decide if we want to bring the round winner in, if we want to bring, someone's had a really good night in for a chat. We'll mix it up a little bit because the triple headers are a really good opportunity to bring people in that don't really get the chance to come up here, Rhodey. And that's what I think I looked at the most at the beginning of the year and thought, let's not just keep it the same things, week in and week out, even with a different format. Let's give some of these guys that are down the back having a good old shindig with other people some airtime.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good chance. I mean, we already potentially feature them in the broadcast at the race because we're not just here to focus on the guys at the front. If the guys at the front are having a pretty boring race, and it has happened before, we've cut back. I think there's been times where we've even been maybe looking as far back as a race of a 15th, just because the battle's been that fierce and intense, and that's just where the really good racing is. So it's a good chance to then come back after the race night and actually talk to some of those guys and get to know what's going through their head. And it's a good chance for some of those guys as well because that's sort of an aim. That's definitely an aim for some of the drivers, just to get into a broadcast interview and good chance to give some sponsors or a mate or a plug or whatever, and just having fun with it.
Absolutely, and you can see there's a few drivers that are taking to the track just in the last couple of minutes of the warm-up / practice session. A few practice starts going on out there as well, which is going to be very important because it's quite a short run to the line. You can see where the AZ boards are, which is essentially stands for acceleration zone. That's where we would typically expect the race leader in a safety car restart procedure to execute the restart procedure, somewhere between those two boards. There they are, there and there, just on the left-hand side there. And a number of drivers just pulling off the line and doing a couple of practice starts. You can see even one for Dane Liccardo. It looks like he's going to try and do one out of the pit lane, which is always a safe spot to do so. And NZ Snipes is going to go through, so Dane's just waiting for him to go. And then there's that launch you're referring to just a few seconds ago, making sure that he does that. You wouldn't want to do what he just did there, though, in race trim. He did put 2 wheels over that blend line on the exit of the pits, and you've got to obey that if you decide you want to come in for a stop.
Yeah, that's an important one for the drivers to actually keep track of, because we do watch out for those things, and considering where we feel this race is going to go, there's a potential for a lot of drivers to get dinged for that. And of the ways to lose positions, doing it for cutting the pit exit or crossing over the blend line at the pit exit is not the way to go about it.
It's a pretty severe penalty, actually. I think from memory it's about 30 seconds post-race. I'm actually just going to go and check that in the code of conduct now, because that's what it used to be the last time we had applied that. And I'm looking through it now just to see what that is. There has been a small rewrite of those sorts of procedures. It is still a 30-second penalty. It's the same as an unsafe pit release as well, which essentially equates to a drive-through, which is about 30 seconds at this track. So it's actually not too far off the actual pit lane time as well. A few drivers I know have had a few things to say about some circuits are a little bit shorter than the others, and they end up having some issues with getting a 30-second drive-through at a place like Symmons Plains, because the lap only goes for 53 seconds. But that's just one of those little hard and sort of difficult rules to police from time to time. And then you get to somewhere like here, like Winton, and it's not an issue at all, because the pit lane length is virtually the same as the drive-through penalty being applied.
Yeah, it's ultimately one of the things with the penalty. If you don't let the penalty, don't do something that attracts a penalty.
That's right.
It's a simple answer for it, but
it's like speed cameras, Rody. You don't want to pay the fine, then don't speed.
Oh well, actually, the answer there is don't speed in front of the camera.
Oh, that's being that's the technically correct answer, isn't it?
Not that we at ASR officially endorse speeding, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no. It's a valid argument from the point of view that it does scale a lot unfairly at really short tracks. But the easiest solution to it, as I said, is just don't get a penalty in the first place. And a lot of it comes down to unconscious or conscious choices that drivers make that get them those penalties. So it can be a pretty easy one to avoid if you're making an effort to.
Yes, it can. It's an avoidable penalty. I think that's probably the one thing we do want to make clear is that the all the penalties are can be avoided in some way, shape, or another. Although we did see at the last round at Hamilton there was a really awkward situation with how some of the incidents were, I guess, are judged with cars going off and blocking track and stuff. And some decisions that can be made don't never ever have a correct decision, but it's just the lesser of a two evils choice, I think is probably the best way to put it. All right, so we're in the throes of getting a grid together here for race number 1 this evening. 17 laps is the duration. That's what the duration of all 3 races tonight will be, 17 laps. So 3 laps longer than the development series race, or the triple header races that happened a week ago. Already, I'm starting to get a little bit, I guess, intrigued now as to how this is going to unfold. Who's picked what tyres? Who's decided to make the hard tyre call? Who's decided to make the soft tyre call? Who's going to try and make the softs last? Who's going to have to stop? There's a lot of information rattling around both our heads at the moment, I think, and it's going to take us the better part of this 17-lap race to unfold it all as this grid gets away.
100%. So, starting from pole, we've got Luke Rosella for Synergy Sim Racing. A pretty good run for Luke there, but not as far a jump as he'd like it to be, with current championship leader Will Devonish starting from second for CRE Race Engineering. Third is Tim Redmond, first for the Kiwis for Kiwi Sim Sports Team Tanifer, with Brendan Ross surprisingly up in fourth for what is ASR's second slowest driver, according to the man himself. Brenton Foley rounded the top 5, pretty good result for Foley as well, with Dane Liccardo sitting alongside him. This is his second time out in his new livery. Seventh is Kurt Stenberg, a little bit behind where we'd expect to see him, but he's still in touch with the leaders, and he might have the strategy over the rest of them to make this pay off, with Ben Hall starting from 8th for Luke McHugh Racing. 9th is Cam Rutledge for Motorsport, another good run for Cam Rutledge there, with Nathan Higginson running at the top 10 for the Kiwi Sim Sports Automech division. 11th is Lewis Wedding for Pixel Sim Sports, about sort of where he'd probably think he would end up, probably a little far back behind where we think he'd end up, but as I mentioned, race strategy could play out for him, with Lockie Burke in 12th for All Australian Races. 13th is Daniel Cox for Anson Motorsports, with Braxton Stancliffe in 14th, the first of the Stancliffs. 15th is Lockie Locke in the sister Winton Racing Mustang, with Termo back in 16th. Bit of a surprise actually that far back for Termo, but he's still got a few races to play out over tonight. 17th is Steve Warwick, did actually get a couple of laps in the end of that session to start from 17th, with Cheese starting out of 18th in the second Automech Kiwi Sim Sports Commodore. 19th is NZ Snipes for Team Tanifer, with Freakish in 20th, the the one and only Infinity and Beyond car tonight. But good to see Freakish back again. It's the first time we've seen him since round 1. Scott Stancliffe starting out at 21st for what will be his last round for at least the next little while, which we'll bring into a little later. 22nd is Matt Cecil, the super sub for Steve Burko in the Sierra Motorsport Mustang. Colin Warwick starting out of 23rd, back the grid, unfortunately missed qualifying by barely a few seconds, with Corey McFarlane not setting a lap at all in qualifying and starting from the back of the grid in 24th for Team Master Foods.
There he is. There is the grid forming up at the tail there, so you can get a good view of the lights right there. There they are, just on the side there. 1 light, 2 lights, 3, 4, 5, And away we go. And off the grid, poor start for Rosella. Great start for Devonish for a change. And look at Tim Redmond. Here he comes right through the middle. Up into P2. Great launch from the second row. Rosella goes back to third. Ross is going to try and stick his nose in there, but he couldn't get the power down out of 2. And Rosella escapes for the moment. But geez, for a moment, I thought I was seeing double, because that's the best start that Will Devonish has had in quite some time.
100%. That was a very, very solid start from Will Devonish, even without the very poor start alongside him for Luke Riddell. I'm not sure what happened there. It's not characteristic of Luke to get a bad start quite to that degree, and that's dropped him back to third. Tim Redmond also very good start from the second row to get up through, and probably a bit more fire in his belly than Brendan Ross, who was happy to sit back there in fourth. But the important thing is everyone has got away from the start pretty cleanly, seeing a bit of shuffling further down the pack, but I believe that's all just some early scrapping going on. I'm seeing...
Have a look at this. Here it is right here. The pack you were just talking about it. 2 wide, 3 deep, 5 cars long. It's just... It's ridiculous at the moment. Look at them all side by side off of turn 9 as they head all the way down here to turn 10. They're fanning out. There's defensive tactics. There's people trying to run in clean air, but they're doing a really good job to stay off each other at the moment. And it's probably going to take a good 2 or 3 laps for all of this to really clear and sort itself out. Here goes Snipes. He's had a little bit of an average start, lost 2 spots as Cole Warwick picks up an extra 1. He's sandwiched in here between a bunch of Kiwis. Oh, it's Cheese. Loses it off the corner and takes Freakish with him, and there's carnage in the back.
Yeah, Freakish, and I wasn't actually Freakish. It was Steve Warwick, I think, that got caught up in that one.
Yeah, it is too. And I think it's just it's purely accidental, that one. There's not much that Steve Warwick could have done about that one. Take a look at it on the Outlaw broadcast replay here. There was definitely nothing that Warwick could do about that one. Cheese was already quite wide. You can see here at 11. Came in front of Warwick and then just backed it in too much. Just too much pace. Gassed it up. And then he took... Yeah, it was Steve Warwick that he took with him. And then I think Freakish may have been sort of partially caught up in that as well.
Yeah, so that's a shame for Cheese, obviously, also for Steve. He's been in the wars a little bit this week, the last sort of week or two, Steve Warwick, so not the start of the race he wanted, but he has still got a few laps to get sorted. Talking about some of those drivers who are actually making moves up through the pack, I lost track of where he was for a second, but Corey McFarlane is now up to 12th. He's made 12 spots up off the start in the first 2 laps.
Not wrong there. There he is. He's actually tucked in behind Lewis Wedding at the moment, so he's really found a way to avoid the carnage and sort his way. He's off the back row, so he essentially has advanced 50% of the field at the moment.
I would say, as we've got Lockie Burke, he's missed his brakes there in the background and disappeared off into the runoff. I'd say Corey, with his pace, he's probably looking at a soft strategy. He's not going to make the softs last with how far he's pushing, but if the soft strategy is viable, I wouldn't necessarily last to first, but last to definitely top 10, top 5, I think we're possibly seeing here.
Yep, I think so. I think he's staring down the barrel of a good top 5 result. There he is, looking down the inside of row of Lewis Wedding. That got very tight for a few seconds there as well. No quarter given by Lewis Wedding on this one. Termo's had a fairly good start too. Remember, he was down, I think, in about, 16th is where he started this race. So he's picked up a couple of spots as well. Kept his nose fairly clean. And I think behind him, Daniel Cox, I think has he gone backwards? He's gone backwards 1 spot. I knew he was down this back end somewhere, but his times throughout the week in practice were sort of saying otherwise, that he was going to be a bit further up the field. But importantly for Cox, I think he's actually got some clean air, which is what he was talking to me about earlier in the week, was that clean air running was going to be very, very important.
100%, yeah. From personal experience, it's best to run around here in a bit of clean air. You don't want to be too close to cars that you feel like you're going to follow them and keep up with them. You don't want to be too far or too close in front of cars behind that you feel you have to defend from. But yeah, if you've got your own little portion of track to work with, that'll keep the tyres lasting. And particularly if Coxie's trying to make the softs last the entire stint, that's the best way to do it. Fastest lap now for Will Devonish, 1:23.276, which
is a new,
from memory gets in the region. Yeah, it is a new record.
New record by 1/10 of a second. So it eclipses Hobson's old mark of 23.3. And I would imagine that you probably don't want to go much faster than that, especially if you're on a soft tyre right now, because you've got to make it last for a little while yet. Higginson was doing his best to make 8th place last, and that didn't come off the way he wanted to. Stenberg slipping through now to 8th. McFarlane now right on Higginson's hammer for 10th, having just gotten past Braxton Stancliffe. So there's plenty of action up and down the field here. This is really good wheeling battle, for the back end of the top 10. Ben Hall just a couple of car lengths further up
Oh,
the field
Braxton,
as well.
Braxton,
Braxton's lost it. Has he? Great.
Oh,
Tell you what.
That was so lucky.
That was extremely lucky and great situational awareness from McFarlane there as well to see it coming as Braxton's all over the place there as well. That was a great shot from the helicopter cam to see that happening. He just completely lost it. It's a dangerous curb turn 5 because if you get it wrong, it just spits you out and there's no coming back from it almost. But it was really good for McFarlane just to open the steering up and just realise he was going to get hit and just soften the impact.
Yeah, he still ended up losing a bit of time in that, but I suppose the alternative where he would have had his dual centre punched by the Kiwi Simsports Commodore, that's the best way out of it. Luke Rosella responding there with a new fastest lap, so I suspect the guys at the front are on the softs and are pushing.
Yeah, at the moment I think they are. The gap at only about 2.2 seconds at the moment, so not a huge amount in it. And now Rosella's managed to clear Redmond in amongst all of that as well. It was unsighted to us. He has actually gotten back past into second place, probably in the last 2 laps. He's actually put some fair margin on Redmond. You can see there it's a good, 1.5 seconds, the gap on your timing at the moment. Actually a bit further back up the field, so back to 4th and 5th place. Dane Liccardo, having started on row 3, in 6th, now finds himself in 5th, chasing down Brendan Ross, who's not making it easy for him at the moment.
No, I'd say Brendan Ross either on the hards or is trying to conserve the softs because there is a bit more pace behind that car, but he's not quite showing to this point in the race. So I wouldn't be surprised. We've seen the Loose Simsport or Pixel Simsport, pairing, pull some strategy out with the help of Luke Rosella in GT3. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're at the forefront of the strategy calls for tonight as well. So I think Brendan Ross is trying to run his own race and really not so much a fan of Dan Liccardo up his bumper. Dan Liccardo, conversely, running, well, I don't know what his strategy is, but I imagine a slightly quicker one than what Brendan Ross is going to run.
I would be putting it down to, I think Brendan Ross probably is on the hards. That's my guess. He seems to be driving the car fairly straight. The car does look a little bit skatey in the rear end at the moment, suggesting it hasn't got the grip that's there that the soft tyre offers, but the hard tyre will produce the longevity. That's the important thing that we need to take into consideration there. Liccardo is pushing a little bit too hard. I think he is a little bit sideways and missing a couple of apexes at the moment, and just probably doesn't need to do that at this point in the race. This is about looking forward, and if you are going to stop again at some point in this race, not by the time you get to the checkered flag, you're going to stop at some point halfway through this race, you need to make sure you've got all your ducks in a row about when you come in, so you slot back into the traffic nicely, and then you know what the crossover point is. You know when the tyres can't take any more punishment. That's the important thing, working out when the tyres cannot take it anymore and get off them before it gets worse.
Yeah. We managed to get the softs to last 14 laps in Dev Series, but we're obviously going a little slower than the guys are in Supercars. I reckon at a full chat sort of like quality simulation runs that they can afford to do when they're planning on pitting, you can probably get the tyre probably still 10 to 12 laps. So about that point is the flexibility you've got to work with. So from this point, Dane could pit and probably make it home on tyres. But yeah, you're right. It's the extra thought going into where you're going to slot back in. You're going to drop to the back of the grid. But even then, you might not drop right to the back itself, and you might come out with some traffic, which is going to impede your progress.
Oops, Ben Hall, mistake at turn 1. Locked the brake, that lets McFarlane through it, lets Stenberg, who was in front of him, through, drops 2 spots just like that. So that's what mistakes can do to you, and that's what, if you're paying attention to the wrong thing, which in this case might have been how many tyres do I have in the tyre bank, how is my wear rate going? You take your eyes off the prize for a split second, and that's what happens. And now look at this, he's got an angry pack bearing down him, although McFarlane's just had an off just in front of him as well. So that puts McFarlane now on the back foot to haul.
Yeah, and we've got a yellow flag down here as well. I'm trying to pick who's triggered
that was in the background. I think that might have been a car sideways, was it?
That's Tim Redmond.
Redmond? Wow, so you're right. He's actually gone down to 5th place there. And, yeah, he's now been passed by Liccardo. He's been passed by Foley. Or Foley's having a go at him here down into turn 10. He's actually going to get that move done. So what happened to Tim in that one? That's most unusual for Redmond. And looking like he's had a spin up near the gum tree, I think. This is a most unusual spot to have a spin. Yeah, he just carried a bit too much brake, and actually he's well, he's actually done the right thing there. Rather than gas it up and try and get it around and blow through the tyres, he's actually done the right thing and got back on there. He's actually done a pretty good job, actually, Rhodey, of getting that on and minimising any impeding of any cars coming around. Did a really smart job there. For me, that's a big tick.
Yeah, he managed to get back on without losing too much time for himself, and without impeding any other cars around him. And that's just an odd spin. It's almost like it's just dragged a bit of front brake and
it's a lazy spin.
A bit too much front weight of the car. And so there's a very, very lazy spin. Like, wasn't on throttle, wasn't as a result of a down change. It just the car decided it was going to go around.
Yeah, at that part of the track, you don't want to be not changing gears anyway. So there's really nothing to be gained by trying to push a little bit harder. We're at that part of the course now. It's just a little bit of brake on. Just need to flow the car through that part. You need to pick up the apexes nicely. Pick your lines, because this turn here at turn 9 is a late apex corner. You want the latest apex possible, because then you can get onto the power as early as possible for this run down towards turn 10. And you can see the good illustration there. Oh, big lock brake from Foley going into 10 as well, but he still made the apex importantly. So that shuffles the order on the halfway part through the top 10 here. So that puts Licata to 4th, Foley to 5th, and then Redmond after that great start shuffled down to 6th. Stenberg's back, ironically, back to where he started. He started in P7, and he's back there right now with McFarlane in tow. And they're about a second and a bit off the back of this battle group that we're watching on screen as Foley gets it very sideways. Since when's that an obvious statement that's ever been made? That's the first time in a little while we've seen that. And Foley's pushing here and trying to force the hand of Licata to make a mistake, but he's not kind of cracked just yet. And then there's the others behind them. So McFarlane, Stenberg, who's actually been a change back there. McFarlane's gone through on Stenberg, and Ben Hall and Lewis Wedding's the last man inside the 10 at the moment.
Yeah, Foley's been on the attack a little bit here. It was really, he was looking to make a pass on down the kind of few laps ago. It was actually Tim Redmond's off that kind of killed his progress there, and he's having to fight a bit of a double battle now because, he wants to pass Dane, and he's probably marginally quicker, especially in some sectors. He has got Tim behind as well, and Tim, particularly if Tim's confident on his tyre strategy, Tim's got a bit more pace over the pair of them, and at the moment he's just not getting the space in the right spots to really put a definitive pass on. He's having to kind of show the nose and not get quite there, and having to then pull back out of the pass again.
Yeah, you're not wrong, and you can see there's a great exchange there between Foley and Redmond too, just up through the Gumtree section of the course, but unfortunately for them, it has put McFarlane right onto the back of the Pack and Save Mustang. Stenberg's having a bit of a right handful back there as well. Just it's a bit odd to see him with so much sideways action coming out of some of the corners. And then behind them, Lewis Wedding's now trying to put a move on Ben Hall for 9th. He's on the wrong side here for turn 1, but he puts the squeeze job on and makes a very, very nice pass going the long way around at 1.
Yeah, cheeky little sort of block pass there as well. He didn't get quite the run off of the apex, but was able to just put his car where he needed to. Ben had no option other than to run straight at the back of him, which he did. And that's put him through. Ben wanted to have another look at turn 3, but didn't quite have the room or really have the pass even available to him. And I'm pretty sure at this point Lewis has settled that, so he can start to set his sights now on so that's Kurt Stenberg, who he's probably not having the race we thought he'd be having.
No, he's definitely not. And then behind Hall, look at this little queue starting to form. Higginson with Colin Warwick all over him. And Daniel Cox just tucked in here as well. There's a lot of close action here. Higginson desperately wants to get this pass done. He's looking for the opening. It's just not opening up just enough for him at the moment. And he wants to get this job done as soon as he can, because he knows that Warwick's probably going to be a demon under brakes on him at some point or another when he gets a good run off one of these turns. So he doesn't want to be too vulnerable for too much longer.
Yeah, here's another one having to fight a double battle here because, Warwick's right behind him. Warwick's got the big hurry up on. But Ben's managing to wander it wide a little bit, like he'll wander it wide there and just giving him room. Bit of a yellow flag there, trying to pick who that's for. It's a couple of cars pitting actually, and Matt Cecil's parked off on the pit road entry, not sure what that was for, but that actually kind of killed Higo's pass opportunity. Not only that, it ruined his run off the corner. And Warwick has just about gotten through, but there was contact there.
Yep, and this is going to be awkward for Higginson, that he's going to have to rejoin here, and just made sure that he didn't gain an advantage, and he didn't. So Warwick goes through. He knew the gig was up there, and there wasn't anything he could do about it. Now he's at a point where he's overdriving the car, and he's vulnerable. He's sliding off the turns, and then the other drivers that are around him, and there he goes. He's pinched another brake there. There goes Cox straight through on Higginson, and I think probably his tyres are starting to cry enough at this point. Lock-ups into every corner, sideways action to every corner, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the 00 Automech car in the lane in the next sort of 40 seconds or so.
Yeah, I think for his sake, he's very much at the end of his tyre life. They're not going to do another 5-6 laps, so he's going to have to be pitting whether he planned to do it or not.
Yeah, I think that's going to force his hand, and I think a number of drivers will be looking at the situation here and working out, maybe just using race number 1 as a benchmark to sort of see how their car performance is on the soft tyre, if they think they can make it last, and then if they can't, what they do after that, you know, whether or not they're going to do a hard tyre run in race 2 and 3, or if they're going to do a soft, or how they make that sort of equation work. The margin out front still sitting around 2 seconds, so it hasn't gotten any bigger, it hasn't really gotten any smaller. It's been around that 2 to 2.2 second margin. It's visual there, you can see it's not there's not a lot in it between Devonish and Rosella. With 5.5 laps to go, there will be some traffic starting to come into play in the next couple of laps. You can see it just flashing through in the front of shot there. The last of which I think is Braxton Stancliffe, who's he's had a bit of a shocker somewhere, but I think he's actually been into the lane and taken some service. Just looking through the order as well to see who else might have been in. McFarlane, who you pointed out possibly was going to be one to run soft. He looks like he's been in for service as well.
Yeah, just seen Steve Roke enter the lane as well. Scott Stancliffe is currently in the lane. I think Cheese is maybe planning a stop as well in there as well. But no, pretty willing battle actually happening now in the for the back end of the top 5. Kurt Stenberg has finally managed to get some decent sectors into the 47. He managed to get past Dane Liccardo with a bit of an opportunity to move down to turn 1. Dane was forced to take it to the run off the inside of turn 2, which sort of sealed the pass for Kurt. And now he's pushing up on the back of Brenton Foley, who, even when he's not doing Brenton Foley things, he's probably still pushing his tyres a bit much, and sort of depends on what Kurt's running tyre-wise as to where he's at. I'd say he's possibly even on the hards, just based on how little grip the cars appear to have at various points in this race.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I think that's a possibility for Stenberg, and it's hard to gauge too, because he's been in so much traffic and the traffic's been doing sort of similar times to him. You really haven't really got an idea of if the traffic around him is conserving their tyres and being on the soft, or if they're running the hard and just that's what their natural pace is. They're the parts of the equation that we do not know until you really start to see a car in the clear air just set, you know, reasonable lap times, and you really only get that towards the you know, the early part of the going. So we get a new race fastest lap for McFarlane, 22.5, so pretty decent clip, and of course that will be with fresh boots on as well. He's currently down in 17th place and still got a bit of work to do in the AAR Master Foods Mustang. We're working down towards here now. 4 laps remaining as Stenberg has just lost touch with a little bit here with Brenton Foley, and Foley, as you said, doing Foley things. Oh, he's doing more than Foley things. He's very, very sideways going there. We went to the onboard probably at the wrong time, actually. He was very sideways through 11, and that would have punished those left-hand side tyres an awful amount. But somehow, he's managing to stay ahead of Stenny here and just sort of keep him at arm's reach, or just keeping a little bit of an air gap, just as a bit of an insurance policy.
Yeah, at this point, I'd be amazed if anybody's out there on softs and hasn't pitted yet. We're getting to the point where the Super 2 guys were very much tyre critical, and they were conserving. Yeah, at this point onwards, if you're on softs and you haven't pitted, I'd say you're risking a blowout unless you've really been conserving the pace. So I think we've probably seen the last of the stoppers, unless somebody managed to pop a tyre sort of by accident in the next few laps. But yeah, it's now down to race pace. Yeah, I think it is now.
Well, I'm actually just keeping an eye on this as well, because this gap has shrunk by about half in the last lap and a half with Devonish and Rosella. So it was a 25.3 for Devonish last time around, 24.7 for Rosella. Now, we don't know what tyre Will Devonish is on here, but he put a decent clip in the early going, and I'm not sure if it was just a mistake that he made. Now down to a 25 flat on that last lap. and sort of stabilises the gap a bit. Rosella came across the line in a 24.9, so fairly stable. I'm not sure if that's a blip on the radar or if there was some traffic involved in that one. And actually just noticed Foley just went off. And Foley went off, and he was actually quite lucky that he wasn't, he didn't have Stenberg and Liccardo right up his chuff there, but he came back on at a bit of an awkward sort of part of the track right at the pit lane entrance, and he's still sideways Foley here, but he's still maintaining that gap to Stenberg.
Yeah, but he's going to be doing that with putting a lot of hurt on his tyres. I suspect at this point, Foley possibly even running a hard tyre. It's doing pretty comparable lap times to Kurt Stenberg at this point. They are quite a bit slower than the leaders, which, to be fair, could be running hard. You're right, it's such a hard one to gauge at this point because the lap time differential is really not that different compared to conserving the softs versus pushing the hards. Another fastest lap there for Corey. He's just bettered his benchmark by about a tenth. So he's basically out there running qualifying laps at this point. It's not going to do him too much with the field spread, but if any other cars in front of him start to run out of their tyres, he's going to pick up a few spots. Another interesting one to actually note on the back of the battle with Kurt Stenberg and Dan Liccardo was Cheese, who pitted and came out right behind Dan Liccardo. He's got fresh tyres. He's got a limited fuel tank. So he's out there running qualifying laps as opposed to these two, which are out here, I'm guessing, trying to either conserve tyres or just make the best of the hard tyre.
Yeah, I think you're right. He's got pace in hand, Cheese, but unfortunately he can't use it because he's a lap down, and the minute he gets past this battle, he has to actually drive away from it. That's the important thing. If you've got blue flags and you've pitted and you've got a fresh set of boots, you've got to be able to demonstrate that you can pull away and get away from it so you don't get pinged by the stewards for ignoring the blue flag. So I think from his point of view, he's content to just sort of sit there at the moment and let these guys continue to fight, hoping that they might end up off the road or have a tyre blowout or make a critical mistake as their tyre wear decreases. There's Tim Redmond just up ahead of Brenton Foley and Kurt Stenberg. And then Liccardo, I think, might be quite happy just to settle for 7th here. 6th to 7th's not a bad result with a number of drivers coming through the field and putting the pressure on. One we just saw a few moments ago, Colin Warwick is still pressuring Lewis Wedding for what would be 8th place, and that would be a pretty handy drive for him to march through the field.
I will temporarily sidetrack the attention, and I swear what I'm seeing is right, but what I've seen was not the right move there. Ben Hall, perhaps not surprisingly being one of the guys to blow a tyre in Super 2, has managed to blow a tyre in Super
there he goes.
Cars,
there he goes. He's gone. We're seeing in the background there. He's had a moment, and he's gone off at turn on the way to turn run. Here's the battle for the podium, for the first place flag, though. We're watching this right now. We're on the last lap. Will Devonish and Luke Rosella. The gap has narrowed substantially over the course of the last minute and a half to 2 minutes, and it is on. The next passing opportunity is turn number 7, which is coming up through 5 and the kink at 6. And then under brakes here, the Devonish covers the line. And now it's sort of a one-track groove and not make any mistakes. And the next passing opportunity will be at 10 and then 11. And then he's just got to cover those ones off and he might be home. He's just got to be really careful here. Rosella doesn't go for the dive at the wrong opportunity there. And now Devonish has got to just keep a narrow track. He's got to make Rosella earn. He's got to move it over. Move it over to the left. Don't give him any opportunity here. You don't want to move it too far, though, because you will inevitably ruin your line through turn 11. Braxton Stancliffe shouldn't be a factor in this. Just one more corner to go, and he's hoping to be home and hosed here. Bit of rubbing, bit of panel damage, bit of sideways action, and they're getting into each other here. And I don't know how that's going to be read here by the stewards.
Safety car. No, not safety car. Sorry, I saw a blinking yellow. That would have been just for Will. Sorry, the safety car at the end would have been interesting. But,
and there's a redress happened there, so Rosella's given up the gig and realised, no, there's no point fighting this. We're going to be off the front row anyway, and he will give the win to Will Devonish. So that was a late minute thing there.
Oh, we're going to come back to the battle for P4 here. There's 3 or 4 cars tied into this one.
It's very tight. Rossi's going to get home for 3rd, so it's a podium for Brendan Ross. This is the now battle here. Foley hanging on for dear life for P4. Redmond trying to keep it for P5. It's going to go down. The one that's going to be interesting here is this one. Stenberg's going to get P5. Redmond demoted to 6th at the end of the day, ahead of Liccardo. So that was a great scrap to the line for the minor placings then. Wedding's has been good enough to hold off Colin Warwick for 8th, so that's a really good defensive effort for Wedding late on in the race. definitely was on the hard tyres there. Cole Warwick that charged through the field to 9th from the back of the grid, gain of 14 places there, and then Higo has, as Berkey goes for a wild ride, Higo has managed to scramble a top 10 finish.
That's pretty good. I'm not even sure what he was doing as a strategy. We saw the car was wobbling around a little bit. I'm guessing probably pushing for the hard tyre, but either way, good run for Tony Dickinson to be a top 10 there. Lockie Burke improved 1 spot to 11th. I saw that Carlos Suarez at points there, so possibly the softs and possibly just not quite getting the tyres. Oh, he got the tyres to last actually to get to the end. Corey McFarlane ended up getting up to 12th with a stop on the softs. He probably was hoping a few more people were going to pit around him. Daniel Cox comes home in 13th. That was where he started. Good solid run. A couple of other drivers around him moving up and down, so he managed to keep himself in a stable position. Lockie Lock moves another spot up to 14th with NZ Snipes finishing in 15th there, improvement to 4 spots. One driver I know who did fall off through that, which was Cam Rutledge's one actually, he's dropped down to 16th, so I'm not sure whether a tyre went or whether it was just a decision to stop for a second set of softs in that race. But one driver I do know who is probably dropped to the tail he has in the end. He's only beaten Matt Cecil, was Ben Hall. Now, we saw his tyre go, but his tyre actually went before he passed the pit lane entry, so I'm not sure why he didn't dive in. He probably thought he could drive around on 3 tyres and accrue a less of a time loss, and he only had a lap to go, so it might have been true, but he was at risk of a bit more than time loss there, so not the decision I would have made, but either way he's ended up at the tail of the field.
Yeah, he has. And just seeing some comments coming through in the live chat as well. It's good to see Peter Thrower in there from earlier in the race. It's his wife's birthday, but somehow he's managing to tune in to see what's going on. So that's what you call multitasking. Apparently only females can multitask, Brody, so I don't know how that's working out for him. And also good to see Darren Loughnane in there as well, saying Dane, quote-unquote, not ready for main game Liccardo. Well, he's had 2 top 10 finishes since he's been under the CRE banner, and I would say that, mate, he's ready for main game.
Oh, 100%, yeah. He's been filled with a little bit of a lack of self-confidence coming into this season. It probably didn't help him somewhat under his previous employment, only sort of running the team car, was not actually having any sort of setup connection to the team, but he was already getting assistance from Will Devonish, and now he's officially part of the team, definitely doing wonders for him, and another top 10, which is doing him favours in the points as well.
Yeah, it's doing him a huge favour in the points at the moment as well. So he'll start to move himself up that order as things go. And we, of course, as we said before, we're not going to do the broadcast interviews just yet. We're going to leave that for a little bit later in the night. We will keep things rolling along. Race 2 coming up in just a few moments' time. We're going to take a short break here in Central Commentary, and we'll get ourselves organised for the next race coming up in about 5 or so minutes. Don't go anywhere. The 2022 ASR Supercars Championship is proudly brought to you by Cam Rutledge Electrical, a licensed electrical contractor in Nowra, New South Wales. And Beyond Electrical, specialists in electrical, domestic, commercial, industrial and maintenance work in Auckland, New Zealand. The ASR team would also like to pay thanks to those businesses that helped us over the course of the 2021 season. Matt Harvey Repair and Tune, Smith & Sons Renovations and Extensions, Design, Plan, Construct. Penrite, a better class of oil since 1926. Ryco Filters, the professional's choice since 1936. And Milwaukee Tool, nothing but heavy duty. Thanks for staying with us, everybody. You're watching round number 4 of this year's ASR Supercars Championship. 1 or 2 drivers just yet to make their way back into the server while the practice warm-up, whatever you want to call it, is underway. Roddy, I know in real life that Winton proclaims itself as the nation's action track. Well, from my point of view, it wasn't actually a bad statement to use for the last race. It actually was a pretty entertaining race, especially right toward the back of the last few laps there, especially with Luke Rosella bearing down on Will Devonish, the late coming together, a couple of guys trying to get across the line, 3 wide, and actually not a bad start to the night, I must say.
Yeah, maybe not quite the nation's action track as to be the top of the action pile, but definitely more than enough for that length of race. There was a nice little lull in the middle, which gave us a chance to try and really attempt to be completely incorrect with whatever strategy each car was running, because if AMS had the option to actually have different coloured tyre walls for the colours people were running, it would make things a whole lot easier, but it's not an option we got to play with right now, unfortunately. But first couple of laps, things were pretty spicy. Good little sort of battles worked away there in the mid pack, and then a couple of guys pitted out and were coming back in. McFarlane being sort of the key example of that, and then towards the end, the lead battle closing up, the battle for fourth in the end closing up pretty well. It's a good track, and I think probably the length of race probably plays into it quite well.
Yeah, I think it's actually spiced something up here. So I think a few drivers are going to be scratching their heads now going, well, tried the soft, didn't have the desired effect that I wanted it to have. What else can I do this time around? And well, the answer is, well, change tyres. Don't get so aggressive on the loud pedal so often. And I think the important thing is, I'll put it up in a little bit, patience. Patience is a virtue. That's the only thing I think I probably need to stress more than anything about this racetrack, is that if you're caught behind another driver, you've got to exercise your patience, and you've got to find a way to get through. You just got to be patient, persistent, try and force someone to make mistakes. That's the only thing that we can probably take out of that one, and see how it unfolds at the end of the day. But a few drivers that probably didn't really exercise some patience, and a few drivers that probably did. So we'll have to see what happens in this one. But Roddy, I'm still in shock. I'm still in shock that the launch that Luke Rosella actually got at the beginning of that one. I can't understand how he actually went backwards so quickly.
Like, the only thing I could argue, and it would only be reflective of choice of, well, a couple of reasons it could be. It could be being on the softs and wanting to not torture the tyres too much, but I mean, a race start is a worthy way to lose a bit of tyre life, because it's much better starting from the front and being able to back the rest of the field up than trying to race back to the front. Or it could just be the fact he's on hard tyres and he just hasn't had the practice with the lack of grip that a hard tyre offers compared to a soft tyre when it comes to a race start.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's an odd one. I think from his camp, that won't be a repeat action he makes again in race 2, whatever it was.
No, I think so. I think he's learned his lesson about if he was on a hard tyre, how the hard tyre bites, and when it actually, the slip that it would have, because of course it doesn't have the same amount of grip that the soft tyre does, so off the line is a bit poor. But then if Redmond was on the hard tyre and he managed to make it work, he was off the line like a bullet, so he managed to be able to get it to work. So I'd imagine you're right, it'll be a learning thing for Luke Rosella. He will have figured it out and now goes, okay, I need to get a better launch this time around. Now, importantly for him, he's on the opposite side of the grid. So you can see there, pole position is on the driver's left. So that's closest to those AZ boards you can see on the screen there. That's where Rosella was when he went backwards. Devonish was on the other side. They swap this time around. So Will be on the driver's left, Rosella will be on the driver's right, which, if you get a better start, is the better racing line to have anyway, because you're on that natural turn-in for that part of the circuit. And then if you can hold it around the outside, you will be in position for turns 2 and 3, which both go to the right. And then you can sort of, hold your position from there. So Will didn't have to worry about that in the last one because he had a pretty good start from the front row. So we'll see if he can repeat it this time around as we I've got a checkered flag being shown in the warm-up session, and race 2 not far away. Tell you what, Rody, there's 11 rounds this year. It's the first time we've had that sort of number, and there's of course the drop round being factored into proceedings this year as well. But we look at how many races there are overall for the year, and I can't believe we're already this far through. It's 22 races overall, and by the time we get to the next round at Barbagallo, we'll be halfway through the season. So 5 rounds in, and we will have already had half the races. We'll chalk up races 7, 8, and 9 tonight, and then 10 and 11 in 3 weeks' time. And then there's only another 11 to go after that. So they're going really, really quickly.
Yeah, you give me a stat of something similar right at the start of the year, where something like a fifth of the way through or something, and I'm just like, but no, it's the weird math with how the schedule's been laid out, and the smattering of 2s and 3s and amongst some of the single length races. But yeah, it's going quick already. I mean, we're a month or two from June, so yeah, it's been a very quick year so far.
It has been a very quick year. It's going too quick sometimes. We look at it in real life terms. We're already 5 months or nearly 5 months through the year, and it just feels like it's already still part way through the year. Still feels like it's March. Anyway, here we go. The weather doesn't feel like it's March, but time-wise, it doesn't feel like it's going all that great. And a number of cars gingerly away from the line here. So if they weren't on the hard tyre last time, they are now. Will Devonish trying to take the field out pretty quickly here on this outlap. So he's going to start from the pole. And look at them all. They're all they're not sort of going with him at the moment. Luke Rosella's going to start on second position ahead of Brendan Ross and Pixel Sim Sports 444 machine. Good drive from Rossi actually, up to 3rd place. Brenton Foley did a really good job to hang on to 4th right at the end of that one. So that's a good recovery for his points championship charge. Of course, we got to remember, drop rounds are not factored in for another 4 rounds yet, so still plenty of time to go. Kurt Stenberg, he gained a couple of spots in that one, so moves up from his 7th or 8th place starting spot to 5th. Redmond will start out of P3 in the last race. He's going to start out of 6th for this one. Dane Liccardo in 7th, so 6th to 7th, not a bad return for him so far, still inside the 10. Lewis Wedding is 8th, having staged that great defensive battle late with this man, Colin Warwick, who drove from the rear of the field. And then Nathan Higginson, who started 10th, will finish 10th and starts 10th again. Lockie Burke out of 11th for the number 112 Napa Auto Parts AAR Mustang, alongside his stablemate in Corey McFarlane, Team Master Foods AAR. The teams are sort of not linked, but they're not scoring points for the same team. That honour goes to Hans Brunswick. He's missing for this week. Daniel Cox in the Answer Motorsports number 94, he's out of 13th alongside Lockie Lock in the Q Racing Mustang in number 237. NZ Snipes will share row 8 of the grid with Cam Rutledge. Braxton Stancliffe is going to share row 9 with Termo. That's about where he started in the last one too, so Termo's had a bit of a tardy night so far. Scott Stancliffe is going to share the 10th row of the grid with his Kiwi counterpart in Cheese. And then rounding out the 24 cars for this one, Freakish, who's joining us for the first time since round 1, since he moved to Los Angeles. So he's doing some really good time management here. Steve Warwick for the Warwick Racing team. Ben Hall's going to start this one from the pit lane. And Matt Cecil is going to be off the rear of the grid all on his own, son.
Interesting call from Ben, but might actually be alright because he avoids needing to do a super aggressive race start and trying to battle in the early stages of the race. So it might actually pan out for him, especially with being one of the few guys to blow a tyre last race.
There's a couple of drivers that were just sort of out of position. That's the view from the Liccardo number. Liccardo, he was the number 35 down there. And away we go right now for race number 2, and Luke Rosella left a set of 11s in the second place start box here, but his start was much better compared to last time. He's going to be hanging in there with Devonish. They're going to go door handle to door, a bit of bumping and running, and Rosella was That's ugly.
Aggressive.
That was quite aggressive, and Rosella was all over the curb here. Foley's going to make it 3 wide going into turn 3. That's not going to work, and he had to bail, in a big hurry. That opened the door for Stenberg, though.
In the background going to the side of Lewis Wedding as well. That's a very aggressive start for these guys.
Yeah, this is much more aggressive compared to the last race that we had, and already I think signs of desperation starting to creep in. Devonish now looking to fight back on Kurt Stenberg pretty quickly.
Lewis playing the football, it would seem. Had Higginson into earlier. Lockie Burke went for a pretty monumental dive into the start of the gum tree and made contact with the rear of Lewis Wedding, which has backed him back into this train. Berkey and Higginson are still battling on. Corey McFarlane's somewhere in this as well, as is Colin Warwick. It's gone off already.
It has. It's already started going off, and Devonish has been able to make that pass happen on Kurt Stenberg. So some really early desperate signs from a lot of drivers in this one. Here comes McFarlane looking for a move down the inside of Lewis Wedding. That's really late under brakes. Is it too late? No. He manages to pull it up, so therefore that sort of lends weight to the theory he's going to run soft tyres most of the night, because that braking performance was superb.
Yeah, that definitely leans into the softs, and if he can get himself further up before he stops, he might be able to still make a top 10 out of the next 2 races, which might be his plan.
Yeah, we're targeting a top 10 finish overall. You've got Tim Redmond now here with 5th, and look at the heavyweight championship battle on back behind him, and McFarlane looking down the inside a few times, and then even a bit further back you got the man you were talking about a few moments ago, Lockie Burke, going toe-to-toe with Lewis Wedding yet again. So it's kicking off, and really, really early this time, as you rightly pointed out, Rhodey. I'm thinking it's probably too early.
Either all these guys are out here on hards, or are committed to a soft with a stop, or they're just all going to end up with punctures at like lap 11, the way they're going right now.
Yeah, I think you're not too far from the truth there. All it's going to take is an interlocked wheel or something here to really upset someone's plans, and it'll be all over Red Rover. And Liccardo turned! Liccardo turned at the back, and that was brewing. And there's been contact as well. There's been contact down there.
No, there it is.
And the safety car is called.
Safety car, and there's the safety car.
There it is called now. So there'll be people coming into the lane here. So that's what's going to sort of look at this one here. And the field has been, neutralised. So Scott Stancliffe is just in there behind Liccardo. I want to go back and have a look at this on the replay while we keep an eye on what's going on here, because this was ugly. And something's gone on here. I don't know what it is, but Liccardo looks like everything was fine at that point. And he was wide, and he's been tagged by Wedding, and then the next man that came along was NZ Snipes and Crunch.
This is coming from a spot of respecting all the drivers in this field and saying that they're not out there to cause safety cars, but I almost get into some like back-end vibe that they've all done like a 12-13 driver pact at the start of that race to go, look, we'd like a safety car in this race to make the tyre strategy work, so let's do our best to cause one without making it obvious that we've caused one.
There's drivers in the lane. Okay, so who's in the lane here? We've got Matt Cecil's in, Cam Rutledge is in, Lockie Lock, and who's that leaving? I just couldn't quite see who it was. It might be Colin. It's Colin Warwick. So Colin Warwick actually came in, and I bet you he's taken a set of softs there. Probably not a bad strategy play to put down here, especially if you're toward the back of the field. Now, unfortunately, if you were on the hard tyre and you were out of position, that ruins your attempt to get into the lane, because the safety car on the circuit now, and you have just got to stay in the queue. If you're there, you've got to basically made your bed, you're now going to lie in it.
Yeah, it's almost, I mean, safety car helps, but this safety car is almost too early unless guys are prepared to conserve their softs in the second stint. So the only people that are really maybe getting something out of this is guys going easier, people that are changing from hard to soft, but again, you need another safety car to really make the softs work unless you're prepared to conserve them. It's a little less conservation to do, but it's still something. The only people that are really going to benefit from this are those that are trying to do it without stopping on the softs and couldn't make it last race. Like, the one person I think is going to really benefit most from this is Ben Hall, not only because it gets him back into the pack, but it gives him at least a lap or two where he can run as gentle in his tyres as he possibly can if he needs to, which I think he does, to try and give him that tyre life at the end of the race.
Yeah, and we're just keeping on here. Ben Hall there's actually a few more drivers that are in the lane as well, just keeping an eye to see who they are. It looks like it's Cheese and Freakish have taken this opportunity as well to come in and put on a new set of tyres. And they are in and getting that done. About time actually we brought up, while we're under safety car, we'll bring up the probably the race facts, I think, will Daniel Cox Designs, as you can see a few drivers leaving the lane there. And here we are. So the Winton Motor Raceway, that's what the numbers they would have been doing. They would have been looking at a 30 to 40 second pit lane transit time to get in under green flag running and get out again. That's the net loss. And then that's now been shortened because of the yellow flag. You don't lose that any time at all, basically. If you're on the back of the pack, come in, take your time, take your tyres, get out and get going again, and you'll be right on the back of the queue. You don't lose any time. Therefore, the only thing you do lose is track position. And then there, right at the very bottom of those race facts, as we were talking about, the two topics we've been talking about tonight, patience and tyres.
Yeah, and tyres is an obvious one. Patience as well, especially patience to commit to running your strategy, and patience even just getting the pass done, because there's a lot of sections around this track where a lot of area around the track where it can be a bit tricky to get a pass on.
What's Rosella
doing? Something very interesting at the front.
Yeah,
I'm
doing?
on board with him as well. It's almost like a Shane Van Gisbergen two tyres in the grass at SMP a few years back when it was wet and when it was dry and he was still on the wet tyres trying to make the tyres last, but it's not wet, and unless there's some absolute meta in the game that Luke Rosella's somewhere in the first to realise that tyre life is less on the grass, or tyre wear is less on the grass. Maybe, which would make sense because the left-hand side does get a lot more wear around here, so if that's the case, maybe that's why he's doing it, but it's very odd all the same.
Yeah, I think it's very odd there as well. It's ironic. Lockie Locke, who's actually just come out of the pits, having stopped again, catching up to the back of the pack, so it's the fastest lap of the race. Of course, that will be null and void because of the fact we're under safety car, and it'll probably be reset anyway by a number of the drivers that are on the soft rubber when we get back up to full racing speed, as we're continuing behind the safety car for the third lap. Rumour has it, Rhodey, that the man driving the safety car at the moment is the ghost of Corey Ott. I don't know if there's any truth to that rumour.
I'm curious as to where that rumour originated in the first place.
Yeah, it's something I've been hearing whispers in the wind. I don't know what it is. We actually don't know the identity of the pace car driver. I'm sure there'll be a few people in the live chat that are going to try and work that one out. But for those of you at home, of course, there was an untimely death of Corey Ott in one or two races here in ASR at one point or another. And we hadn't seen him since, and that what we believe is it's like the Stig. It's an ASR Stig moment. We just don't know who's behind the helmet of the person driving the safety car.
Yeah, if it was a ghost, there are a few drivers that have seemingly met their demise in ASR, but we'll come back to that probably another safety car, because the safety car has just pulled in.
There we go. So we're back to green flag running here. Luke Rosella's got control of the field with 5 laps in the books and 3 laps of those under safety car. And it's now time to execute a safety car race. There's a few guys struggling right off the back of the pack here. And stop-go penalties now been issued for Matt Cecil. I'm not sure what all that's about. Where was Matt Cecil in the queue? I think he was toward the back anyway. But we are underway again.
Yeah, very good jump there for Luke Rosella, making up for his start so far tonight. Kurt Stenberg sort of caught Will napping there as well. And managed to get the jump on him, but Will's trying to put the fight back on, but putting that fight back on is just giving Luke more room to work with. Foley's up in 4th with Tim Redmond now in 5th.
Yep, he is indeed, and off we go again. So Rosella's quite comfortably clear here, and instead of putting a bit of margin, there's a bit going on behind him though. Stenberg had a bit of a go at Will Devonish and still trying to fight it on here. Now round the gum tree they go on lap 6, and Stenny gets the high ground. Little bit of push and shove, that's okay for the moment. And Stenny on the defensive line's going to hang on to this one for the moment.
Yeah, he's almost in that fight with Stenberg there, Will. Almost opened up the door for Foley to try and get a move on there. Foley sort of thought better of it, though. Still, the door was going to close at some point, and it wasn't worth trying to put his foot in it. But there is a little angry little battle pack behind Foley now. Tim Redmond trying to get a pass on, and then Lockie Burt, Corey McFarlane, Brendan Ross, Nathan Higginson, Daniel Cox all lining up to make some moves here. And there's a few cars behind. I think Dan Liccardo's at the back of this train as well, along with one of the Warwicks.
Yep, and Cole Warwick actually has moved his way through the field. Now, he stopped under the safety car as well, so I'm a bit surprised to see that he's actually up in front of Dane Liccardo. I don't know how that's happened and transpired in the course of one lap, because there was a few drivers ahead of him that would have stopped after he'd already been in the lane. So he would have gained a couple of spots, but I'm very curious to see how he's managed to gain so many positions.
We've just got a car off at turn 2. It's Daniel Cox. I think he might have run wide in the traditional way of killing your car at turn 2 at Winton.
Yep, he has indeed, and he's dropped all the way to the tail of the field for the rookie. That's a fairly big mistake there. And let's have a look. Here it is, going down into turn number 1, turn 2. He was on the curb. I don't know if there's a bit of... Oh, he's at the fence too. I don't know if there's a little bit of contact there from Liccardo. There may have been. He may have been already going around on his own potentially as well, because he was quite high up on the curb with a bit of power on, and wouldn't be surprised to see if Dane's involvement is extremely minor. We'll have to have a look at that one a bit later on.
Yeah, speaking of Liccardo moving back up to the field, got angry little battle pack going on again now. It's Brendan Rossler leading the straight at the moment. He's sort of fallen back a bit from Corey McCallum, still in touch with that major battle, but fallen back a bit. He's dealing with Colin Warwick, and then Nathan Higginson and Dane Liccardo that are racing for the World Cup over 10th place right now.
Well, I just noticed something as well. I noticed the safety car has actually gone into the fence at the entrance to pit lane, so there better not be another safety car, or else we're going to have a real problem on our hands right now. I just happened to see that as the things were going along. I don't know how that's actually transpired, because the safety car follows the same AO line as everything else. Here goes Cole Warwick down the inside at turn 3. Nice pass, job done, right in front of Brendan Ross, and now onto the back of Corey McFarlane's Mustang.
Yeah, I didn't actually realise the safety car had done that. I just sort of peel off and thought, yeah, no, job done. But yeah, that's going to be interesting. So as much as these guys seem to want another safety car, they better not trigger one, because don't know what's going to happen there. This whole battle now starts Constantino, actually. Kirk Stenberg and Will Devonish have been battling that hard that they've brought Foley back into it, Tim Redmond back into it. Colin Warwick's actually got up to 6th now. Lockie Burke up to 7th. Yeah, still very angry little battle, and all this ultimately over 2nd. 2nd
all the way back to 10th, right in that shot right there. You've no idea how angry this pack is. One mistake or misstep from anybody here, and it's going to end in tears. That's the important thing, actually. And then behind, actually, it's even more than that. I think Higginson, where's he in the running order? He's actually fighting. He's 10th, and then the man behind him, Liccardo's 11th. So it's 2nd through to 11th. 10 cars right in this shot, right there. Boom.
Yeah, it's quite tight racing. So I'm gonna say confidence in strategy. Whether again hards, whether it's soft with a stop at this point. Anyone who's trying to run softs and save them is not in this pack.
Whoop, Higginson's gone.
Too angry.
Higginson's gone. We're looking at him. He's going round and round and round. He was in 10th place, and he had a moment off of turn 2, almost identical Cox. Has he got a tyre gone? Has he had a tyre let go?
I'd say so, yeah.
It looks like
probably through damage rather than through wear, but it's a shame because, yeah, that car's looking a bit down on top as well. It's a shame. Because right when that happened, there was a brilliant pass on for Tim Redmond on Brendan Foley, but we missed that because Higo was busy dying.
Yep, he did the same thing that Coxie did, and yeah, I think some damage there as well. He's hit the fence, he's done a couple of pirouettes like a ballerina. He's come back onto the circuit okay, and then he's gone to hit the brakes for turn 3, and she's gone straight. Yep, that's a front left puncher.
Yeah, so that's going to be a very long in-lap for Higginson and then a stop. And again, even if everybody else around is planning on stopping, they're not planning on having that sort of time drop over their lap. So he's going to be right down the back.
Yeah, he's going to be a lap down as well. He's gone off again here at turn 9. So yeah, he's in a world of pain. And that says to me he's on the soft tyre and he wasn't going to be able to make it work.
Oh, I mean, no, but not even that. He's just running way too hard on it. So even if playing on stopping, he just didn't get to his planned stop. I'm guessing he was probably going to stop at the end of this lap if it was going to pit at all, but didn't even make it there. So that's a shame. And well, at least he's got that in his pocket for the third race.
Yep, he does. And Redmond now holding off the very hard charging Colin Warwick at the moment, while Stenberg and Devonish continue to go to war. This is, I've never seen anything like this. Well, look at them leaning on each other here. Redmond doesn't know what to do. He gives a little bit of a shove to Will and says, here, fill that gap, go through there. And he tries to, and he couldn't quite make it work. There was a little bit of a nudge from the 43 there onto Will Devonish, and that actually opens up the door for Warwick there as well, just to sneak on through, while Redmond wasn't quite paying attention there.
Yeah, it's sort of Team Redmond sort of almost caught napping there, trying to get the move on Will and trying not to actually run Will off the road or make an unfair pass. Sort of opened the door there for Warwick, who has no qualms about sending it right down the inside and sort of making room for himself, which has put Colin through. Tim has got the pace, possibly try and get back through here, but Colin's only really got the interest now in the red number 15 Mustang.
He does indeed, and just gets a little bit of airtime here. This is why he's been trying to get this pass on Stenberg done ASAP, because he knew that Warwick was coming through the pack, and he doesn't want the pair of Commodores to gang up on him. He needs to actually get out in front of them and try and chase after Rosella, who's bolted, by the way. You can't even see him in shot. That's where, there he goes, just up and over the hill at 3 from the Colin Warwick onboard. You can hardly see Rosella, so he's cantering away to a comfortable win at the moment. And he's still got about 6 or so laps, 6.5 laps remaining. So still plenty of time for anything to happen, really. But I think given the safety car intervention, it's probably fair to say that his tyres are not in too bad a shape right now, Rosella.
No, Luke's doing pretty well. Whether it's tyre conservation, probably at this point, considering how well he jumped away there, I'd say probably maybe even look at the hards. But no, he's got a pretty healthy gap. It's starting to come down just ever so slightly. It's maybe just everything and flowing. Pretty healthy battle now for Colin Warwick on Will Devonish. He tried the same dive that he got on Tim Redmond, but Will was a bit awake to it and sent it back down inside at the middle section of the Gumtree. And they're sort of buying Kurt a little bit of breathing room, but another dive there from Colin Warwick, and he might have actually pulled this one off.
Yeah, I think he has. That was quite of a late dive, and it actually did quite a nice job to pull that one up at the end of the day. That actually now makes Devonish quite a little bit vulnerable to Redmond for a short period of time. Now, Will's just got to bide his time here. He can't afford to make another misstep. There is a championship at play here. Stenberg, who trails him in the championship, is 2 positions further up the field, and Devonish, of course, won the first race. So he has got a small points advantage out of the round so far already, and he just needs to play it sensibly here and just continue to just to maintain where he is. It's not a bad spot to be in 4th place, 2nd row of the grid, being up the pointy end of the field all the time for the races tonight is going to hold you in good stead. Let's go back a bit further in the field. Corey McFarlane pressuring his AAR teammate here in Lockie Burke. Had a bit of a shocker in that opening race. Recovered okay to finish just outside the 10. Both the AAR Mustangs on screen here running in the 10 at the moment.
Yeah, they've done a pretty good job. Corey, I'd probably expect to see pitting at some point, although maybe he has switched to the hards actually, potentially. I'm not sure it's worth trying to gamble at this point who's on which strategy, because it's so line ball on pace. But no, good run for the pair of them. Good run actually for Scott Stancliffe as well. I did note it was off broadcast in race 1, but he did get assisted around pretty early, so not quite the result he wanted from race 1, and he's recovered pretty well, which will be running just behind Brendan Ross in the top 10 right now. And
considering at the beginning of the night where he said, can you just put me off the back of the grid because it is my last race and stuff here, well, that's a bit of a late dive there as well, but just avoids turning the 444 of Brendan Ross. But no, I don't want to start you off the rear of the grid, Scotty. I want to see you up there fighting, and that's what he's doing right now. He's on the door of a top 10 result here, and just got to keep it going for another 5 laps, and it'll be first top 10 result since Gold Coast last year in the Enduro Cup.
Yeah, it's been a little while between drinks. It's going to be messy now at the back now. Battle over 11th. Lewis Wedding and Dane Liccardo, they got into the doors pretty heavily there. Almost looks like a bit of maybe recognition of past rivalries as Dane gets in the back of Higginson. Not sure whether Higginson put on the brakes early for Lewis Wedding or whether Dane was just getting a bit ambitious, but it's starting to get back into what caused a safety car not too many laps ago.
Yep, and the problem is here as well, Higginson's a lap down, so he needs to be very, very careful here. He needs to be able to drive away. He can't sort of maintain the rage for too long. He's caught in a really difficult position. He's behind Wedding, who's on the lead lap, who's gone wide at the Gumtree. But that's lucky for him because Liccardo wasn't there to pounce. But then Higginson's trying to fight his way through and has got to worry about the blue flags here. So this is starting to get, you're right, Rhodey. This could trigger another safety car if something doesn't give here.
Yeah, and technically, I think at this point, Higginson will be the one in the wrong. He's not necessarily most aggressive of the drivers. Lewis was sort of trying to defend him pretty hardly. Lewis, rightfully so, is making him pass improperly because he's not on the final lap. He's not about to lap Lewis, so he's well within his rights to do that. It's just making it a bit harder for Higginson, and the way he drives, he's losing precious tyre life every second he goes up behind the Pixel Sim Sports Commodore. It's also meaning that it's keeping Lewis in check with Dane Liccardo and actually also Cheese, who's had a pretty good run so far. He's currently sitting in 13th.
Yeah, good run for Cheese as well. Good run for Steve Warwick as well. I'm seeing behind Cheese. I know he's only 4 seconds off the back of Cheese, but he has, in the time that he spent when he was off the back of the grid essentially for the start of this race, moved up a good chunk of spots as well. Actually just crunching the numbers on that for Steve Warwick. It's 8 spots for him. Actually, here he is on screen right now. Then NZ Snipes and Cam Rutledge right up his chuff.
Yeah, he's having a good run so far. Just trying to cut through and find him actually, so I went the wrong way through the pack. There he is. No, Steve's having a good run coming off of the start of race 1. Didn't quite go his way. Snipes as well. I think he had some fairly decent. Oh well. No, actually, no, I do remember now. He didn't quite have the qualifying pace in the first race. Maybe Winton just a bit of a mare of a track for him because he's not quite showed the pace that we've sort of seen from him in other rounds so far this year.
It's a bit of a hard one for Snipes too, because I think out of all the Kiwis, he's one of the ones I would have picked to sort of be able to adapt to some of the changes that have been thrown at the cars this year, like the ABS being turned off and that, but he's down the order a bit further than I was actually expecting to be. I would have expected him to consistently being knocking on the door for top 12 finish. I mean, here he is fighting over 14th and 15th place. It's not far away, but I think standards that a lot of the other drivers have exhibited have actually sort of caught him by surprise. They've actually sort of the skill set is raised, or the bar's been raised a little bit faster than I think he was kind of expecting, and actually had to fight earn that pass there on Steve Warwick.
Yeah, and then you mentioned just seeing Dan Liccardo wide out of turn 5. I'm guessing he just hit the marbles there. That said, car's not looking quite of the pace he wants to. I don't know. We'll see from the next corner. He's looking a little bit unstable. He might have a tyre down, possibly.
Yeah, possibly. You're going to have a bit of a look and see if I can see that as well. He's coming through the country. He's just in the back of shot there, going through ahead of NZ Snipes. And yeah, the car doesn't look like it's handling all that great. Actually, here he is. Let's see what his outright pace is like. See what happens when he hits the brake pedal. That's the big telltale sign. The car looks like it's okay. Maybe just went around and just maybe the tyre temp's a little bit too high.
Yeah, possibly just nuked the tyres a little bit where the life's still there. But
McFarlane! McFarlane out of business, and he's taken a few guys with him. Stancliffe has caught up. McFarlane lost it all on his own, I think, and now has to charge through the infield to avoid everyone coming. There's another car behind that went off. Who was that? That was Steve Warwick, and
that was awkward.
It got ugly real quick there, and McFarlane did it all on his own. He's actually getting swamped here. So here it is. He was tucked in behind. Oh, he got a nudge. Sorry, I do apologise. He got a nudge there. Who was that on the inside? That was Wedding on the inside of Scott Stancliffe, and then Stancliffe got nudged into the back of McFarlane and sent him around. And then the other part was this. There was, in the back of shot as McFarlane was doing, Steve Warwick had a big moment, and then you can see just in the back part of it there was, sorry, we're not looking at the wrong one there. I do apologise. We didn't cut over to the replay properly. We'll pick that up now so you can see what happened. Sorry, this is live TV here, folks. This is where it was here. And then, yeah, there was side to side between Wedding and Stancliffe, and then McFarlane got tripped up by Stancliffe, so that'll be a difficult one to judge.
Yeah, there's a few little just messy ones in there. The other one was Steve Warwick, who got a bit of contact with Daniel Cox, I think, not so much necessarily in the braking zone, but just in the transition between the last two corners. Coxie managed to save it. It just sort of fired Steve off, and then he sort of made the best of what he could of that rejoin, possibly a locked tyre or something that meant he couldn't necessarily control the car the way he wanted to. In the end, everybody avoided damage. Steve dropped a few spots, and McFarlane lost a whole bunch of spots, but we're still green, which is good.
Yep, we are still green, and on the last lap actually, so it's all gone by at a pretty quick clip. Even with the safety car intervention, it's sort of going to be just north of 26 minutes is going to be the final race time. So Luke Rosella has controlled this quite well since he got to the front of the field at the start. Weathered the storm from the safety car, weathered everything that was going on behind him, and it's going to be Commodores filling the podium spots in this second race, 1, 2 and 3. It looks like Will Devonish is quite happy to settle for fourth place in this one. Didn't a canter in the end, Brody. It was a bit of a surprise considering what happened in race number 1. But Rosella's going to be mighty happy with that one, and home by a good part of 8.5 seconds.
Yeah, that was a pretty comprehensive win for Luke Rosella in the end there. Safety car probably played into his favour actually a little bit, and that restart is really what set it up for him. Second in the end for Kurt Stenberg, with Colin Warwick just behind in third. A good run for him so far tonight after the recovery in race 1. Will Devonish finishing fourth, probably not quite where he wants to be, but at the same time, very good result. Will definitely bring a good haul of points. Tim Redmond running out the top 5. In the end, Foley was the best of the big battle pack, coming out in 6th, with Lewis Wedding coming through actually to get into 7th. Lockie Burke actually finished 8th in that, so he benefited quite nicely from some stuff happening around him, with Rossi in 9th, and Dan Liccardo manages the second top 10.
Yes, despite the fact that he was in the wars and ended up getting turned by Lewis Wedding up at turn 8 and 9, and then weathered that storm, had that issue where he ran off the road and then has recovered to 10th. Now, a couple of those spots will be by virtue of the McFarlane and Scott Stancliffe incident, that he managed to grab a couple of spots late in that one, but he'll come home with a 10 and be feeling pretty happy about himself there. Just having a look through the rest of the field, the only non-finisher, Braxton Stancliffe, he was the only one out. Nathan Higginson, the only car 1 lap down. And just looking elsewhere to see, there's no real, so I guess, sort of standout efforts in that one. Probably NZ Snipes, I think, is probably the one for me that says, you know what, he's slowly progressing up. He's keeping himself out of trouble. Apart from that fact where he's sort of centre punched the front part of the Commodore belonging to Dane Liccardo when he got turned around, we really had nowhere to go. He's escaping with 11th place. I think he'll probably take that one.
Yeah, that's a pretty good result for Snipes, and you can use that to try and work as a platform and try and get yourself into a top 10 for the third race. Yeah,
they all come into the lane now. You'll just see here something really weird happening from the game. It's Wedding, so he's coming around the corner. There's the safety car. It's just doing, something's just gone a little bit wrong with how the safety car's tried to enter the lane there. I don't know why it is where it is and what on earth it's doing. But yeah, something's gone a bit strange there with it not following into the lane when it needed to go to where it needed to belong to. All right, field coming in for a bit of R&R, and a very brief bit of R&R from that one. We're going to have to dissect that one. And Rhodey, I think you pretty much nailed that one at the very beginning. That got quite aggressive quite early. I mean, for people like Luke Rosella, ultimately it's paid off in terms of he's got a race win. He controlled the field at the restart, and that's all there was to it. But then it went on for a little bit longer. It got quite a bit silly throughout the rest of that one too, at times.
Yeah, it sort of plays into what you sort of expect to come out of a sprint race, to be fair. But sprint races normally don't need the sort of tyre conservation that we're working with today. So just from the point of view of trying to conserve tyres, I thought it was just a little bit aggressive for people who are doing with their cars and with their tyres. Sort of benefited those who wanted to stop because they could stop. I'm going to guess the rest of them were on the hards, because the safety car laps would not have given you much tyre life back, and especially with the way some of them were driving for back into the top 10, they were biting back into that reserve that they'd made and going back to the negative again. So, yeah, some guys were really clearly very confident with their tyre strategies that they had well in reserve to actually have a bit of a scrap of it.
Yep, I 100% agree with you. Few people had, I think, a little bit of an insurance policy in that one with the hard tyres on board, and then a few people went soft tyre and probably got out of jail. I think the safety car going the full distance, I think it should be said. It is a random draw with how the safety car is set up. It's a minimum of 2 laps and a maximum of 4, and it virtually went the whole duration. It got, I think, it got called at the end of 2 and it went in at the end of 5. So it actually did 3 laps, or close enough to the margin. Had it have been the minimum 2 laps, it might have been a bit touch and go for a few soft tyre runners. So we'll probably won't fully know the answer, I think, is what we're going to read into that one.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of what ifs with where the safety car fell, and yeah, I think Kurt Stenberg in chat sums it up best with just simply that's racing.
That is racing, and there's been let's say there's a few drivers that are going to feel again a bit battered and bruised out of that one. They're going to look at their strategy and look at how the safety car affected them, I think, and sort of say, you know what, it might not have been such a bad idea to stop after all. So they'll take that one away, they'll learn their lessons, and they will come back and have another crack at it in this third race, which we're just in the throes of getting everything together now. And we'll be underway in about another 5 minutes. So for the round points overall, I've been just doing the math off the top of my head now, Rody. I don't know if you're filling out the ASR points sheet as it stands right now with Rosella and Devonish splitting a win between them, and Rosella with the second place and Devonish with the fourth. It will give the current round overall as it stands. Luke Rosella will be in front. Stenberg will be probably third on points, I think, out of this one overall so far. And he'd probably be closely followed, I'd imagine, by the likes of Foley and Redmond. They'll probably be up there as well. I'll let you do the math on this one, but that's my mental math. And we'll see,
I'll have to
see how close we actually are.
I break up my second keyboard while we're in the warm-up now, and I haven't actually been entering the points, but you're right, that is something that I can do, so I'll just pull up some race results here and get some in so we got a rough idea of where the championship order is sitting at the moment.
So yeah, we know the rough idea of the championship order is right now. We've been keeping a bit of an eye on things with the point structure. So just to bring up the drivers' point standings again while we're getting ready to go here, so everybody can understand where it is. So Devonish was in front with Kurt Stenberg. Now overall between the two of them, points overall will be in favour of Will Devonish as it sits right now. Not by much, probably by about maybe 10 to 20 points, somewhere in that realm. That's just my rough math off the top of my head. Redmond in third, he's gained a couple of points. Wedding will probably stay where he is. Brendan Ross, I think, will possibly have surpassed Lewis Wedding and moved up to fifth overall in the title race. Brenton Foley probably won't be far out of that as well. He'll probably be a little bit closer to the Pixel Sim Sports cars than he was in the standings here at the end of round 3. And the man who's not on that list, he is just outside the top 10, is Luke Rosella, who of course missed the Simmons Plains round, so he missed a good chunk of points there, and he's having to fight his way through in the same way that Brenton Foley, having missed Hamilton, missed out on a chunk of points. Downside for Luke Rosella, though, he did have a penalty coming out of the first round at Albert Park, which has put him on the back foot for the championship. Going to be a difficult one for him anyway. I think he is going to slated to miss a couple of events through personal commitments. But we'll see how far up the points table he can get, how many wins he can snaffle. I mean, he can still take the pole position award and the fastest lap award and most wins for the year. You can see as of round 3, he had 2 of the 4 pole positions that were on offer, and he's now got 3 out of the 5 because, of course, the twin sprint format, which we're going to be using for the next couple of rounds, is the dual qualifying format. Everywhere else is a single qualifying format, and the 200 kilometre race does have the top 10 shootout that goes along with it. And while Rody is quickly punching out the points standing, so we've got a rough idea of where everybody is. Of course, the next round we mentioned is a twin sprint format. The next 2 rounds, actually, twin sprint formats. June 10th, we go to Barbagallo for the annual trip across the Nullarbor to Perth, so the home race of Kurt Stenberg, which has been a bit of a bogey track for him in ASR in the last couple of years. He hasn't got the wins that he's been after. And then we go up to Hidden Valley on July the 1st, and that's a twin sprint format as well. We actually don't have, Rody, another triple header right until the very end of the season at Sydney Motorsport Park, and that is a mandated hard tyre round as well. So that's going to set the cat amongst the pigeons. We don't have to wait all the way till the end of the season to get the final triple header round, but also the fact that everyone's on the same strategy play, everyone's on the same tyre.
It'll be interesting to see how that one goes, actually, because the tyre wear can also be a little excessive at SMP, but obviously everyone in the hard tyre means that's null and void, and it just becomes a pure sprint race. So, should be some good racing.
I think it should be as well. Just waiting to see a couple of things here. Just getting some word through. It looks like that Ben Hall looks like he's going to be out of this next race, so that will mean we're going to have a grid of 23 runners for this final one, not 24. So just going to have to adjust the grid accordingly. He was down the back anyway. He was starting out of what would have been 22nd place, and it's a bit of a shame to see, but still we're going to have some good numbers, which I'm going to be quite happy to see. We've got a good turnout again, and just waiting on the last of everybody to be ready to go. What have you worked out there, Rody? How are you doing with the points for the round overall?
First round overall, I'm not going to be quite up to, I don't think, in time. I'm just getting the last of the race one results in, because there are a couple of drivers coming from lower in the order that are going to shoot up. A couple of drivers that are higher in the order, Termo being a good example, who are going to start to drop down. Just getting cheese.
All right, so while he talks to himself and we work through all of that, we're not too far away from getting ready to go back to racing here. About another 30 seconds or so, everybody, and then race 3 is going to be underway. I've got a couple of drivers. A number of drivers do decide they want to take to the track just for the warm-up, and here's one of them. Nathan Higginson's one. Who else is at the moment? Looks like it's Braxton Stancliffe. A pair of them just doing a couple of practice starts at various parts of the circuit. Higo's going to need a really good start here, because he's going to be right down the field. He's going to be, I think, 22nd, I think I saw. Yes. So not quite on the back row. Braxton Stancliffe is going to be on the back row for this one. And Higginson definitely is going to have to do a lot of work. I think I don't know what to read into that one. He was mixing it up with the blue flags in the battle pack there, and just trying to get ahead of the faster cars when he had the better rubber on board, but he couldn't utilise it. So he'll probably be kicking himself that he made that silly mistake and ended up in the fence, and the damage, I think, is what caused the left-hand front to rupture. He's got one more race to redeem himself. All right, session has expired. Brady, what do you got there?
So points as of the end of race 1 at the very least. Will still holds the lead from Kurt Stenberg, from Tim Redmond. Brendan Ross did pip Lewis Wedding at the end of race 1 in their overall points, quite handsomely too. Brenton Foley still sitting in 6th, Termo in 7th, Daniel Cox in 8th. Joe Mugford has already slipped to 11th. With Luke Rosella up to 9th and Dan Liccardo in the top 10.
Okay, so that explains how things are going there. So we said that Luke Rosella was just outside the points on the top 10 graphic there not too long ago, and he's now moved himself back into the 10. So which means round points overall, it still will be Luke Rosella and Will Devonish will be the top 2 for the round. It'll be interesting just to work out who the third place one is overall for the round. I don't think the point sheet actually has the round points overall, but we'll have to just, I guess, take a bit of a quick judge as to who that's going to be, especially because we're going to have to bring them in for some broadcast interviews a little bit later on in the piece. Actually, probably in about half hour's time from now, we'll have to bring them in.
A little bit, not far off it actually. We're coming, I didn't realize quite how late it is, but we're getting to the end of the night. Only race 3 left to go.
Yep, 10 p.m. here on the eastern seaboard, which means it's midnight in New Zealand. Hello to everybody in New Zealand that's watching along with this one. Pete Thrower and the Kiwis that are over there. Hope you're enjoying your Friday night beers and you've got it streaming on the Chromecast, on the telly, or whatever you happen to be watching it on. It's great to have you guys along. And, of course, the guys here on the eastern seaboard of the States that are in the chat as well. You've got Zach Brown and Brian Walsh and all the guys that are watching along. G'day to you all as well. Thank you again for continuing to watch the series. I know most of you race in some of the other series that the group has on offer, and good to have your patronage aboard. Here we go, Rhodey. Grid looks like it is just about ready to go for race number 3. There was one car missing at the back. Looks like that spot has now been filled. And away we go. Let's have a look at the grid as it stands for race number 3. Devonish is a bit slow away. I'm not sure what's going on there. Let's run through it anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. He just missed the start or what that is. Luke Rosella starting from pole after a pretty convincing win in that race, with Kurt Stenberg starting from second for Trans-Tasman Racing. Third is going to be Colin Warwick for the Warwick Racing team. Good recovery after the first 2 races. We're starting on the second row with Will Devonish. He has got away at the end, starting from 4th. Tim Redmond starting for 5th for Kiwi Supercars team Tanifer, with Brenton Foley in 6th for PBF Fresh Engineering. 7th is Lewis Wedding, managed to survive some of the chaos in the early part of that race to come home 7th for Pixel Sim Sports, with Lockie Burke starting from 8th for All Australian Races. 9th is Brendan Ross, the second of the Pixel Sim Sports cars, both in the top 10, with Dane Liccardo starting from 10th for this one. He wasn't too happy with how that race turned out, so he's hoping race 3 goes a little more to his plans. 11th is NZ Snipes, the second of the Team Tanifer cars, with Daniel Cox in 12th. 13th is Corey McFarlane. He's had some good pace in both races so far, just strategy hasn't quite paid out for him. Hopefully, for his sake, he can snag a top 10 in the third race here. With Scott Stancliffe starting out of 14th. He's also probably going to try and make a few spots up to the grid for what it will be his last main game race potentially for this year. 15th is Cam Rutledge for Surrey Motorsport. He's had a somewhat of a quiet night after his qualifying performance, but he's still keeping in the points. With Lockie Lock starting from 16th, his indirect teammate. 17th is Termo for Serious Engineering. Seems to be a bit of a bogey track for Termo, unfortunately. Not quite where he'd like to be. With Steve Warwick starting from 18th, the second of the Warwick Racing Team Commodores. 19th is Cheese for the Automatic division of Kiwi Sim Sports. With Freakish alongside him, another one of the Kiwi Sim Sports cars, one of the Kiwi Sim Sports Mustangs. 21st is Matt Cecil for Serie Motorsport, subbing in for Steve Burko, with Nathan Higginson in 22nd, the second of the Automatic cars, and Braxton Stancliffe starting off the back of the grid in the second of the Kiwi Sim Sports Stancliffe division entries, with Ben Hall not making the start, but the car is still sitting in the garage.
Yep, it is indeed, and I have seen him just sitting there waiting at this one. I was actually expecting him to drop out the server, that's what I thought, but and I thought maybe he might have a change of heart, start from the pit lane, but no, the car will be non-classified starter for this one as the field rolls up to the line. I'll have to be careful of that one too, because the car will still be in the grid. Oh, Rosella's actually missed his grid box there, so he's got to take a bit of a backwards moment. And just waiting on the last of the cars to come to a stop at Stancliffe, Cheese, Higginson Co. Oh, Scott Stancliffe has missed his... actually he's in the wrong position there. He was meant to be a bit further forward. And there we go. He's in his grid box. We're good for a race start. And let's get race 3 of the night proceedings underway. It is race 9 of the 2022 Winton triple header. Rosella launches away from the start quite comfortably into the lead from Stenberg. Colin Warwick heads off. Will Devonish for 4th and 3rd place overall there. Redmond and Foley behind. Looks like it's a much cleaner start than we had before, although there are a couple of cars a bit further down the field that are starting to find a bit of orders. Corey McFarlane's gone right to the back. I'm not sure what's happened there, Rhodey.
I'm not sure if that was a poor start or what it was, but I'll go find out.
Yeah, he's right down the back now. I'm not sure if he's trying to last the first challenge here or something, what's going on, but it looked like he maybe got a little bit out of shape through the first couple of corners, ran a little bit wide and then just got gazumped by everybody that ran past him.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he got assisted or just ran wide, but he ended up out on the run-off for turn 2. And just in the effort to get back on the track without spinning up the car, he dropped right to the back of the tail with how close the field was packed.
There you go. So all it takes is one mistake, and he's now right down the back of the field, diving for some open gaps to try and get proceedings underway here. And it's just line astern for the moment. Here comes Foley down the inside of Redmond at turn 10. That's a nice move. It just wasn't quite far enough up to make it stick. Leaves Redmond some room and just tighten the steering wheel just a little bit. And they'll fight on for another couple of corners. Much more settled start, as we said a few moments ago. Just everybody just taking the silliness, I think, out of it a little bit. And already a few movers and shakers here. A bit further up, Dane Liccardo, he's moved up one spot, started 10th, is now 9th, running behind his sparring partner from a few times throughout the last couple of years in Lewis Wedding. And you have to keep a very, very close eye on what he does here, Lewis. You might just find that a gap to the inside will be filled rather quickly if he's not too awake to fend off the challenge.
Yeah, sorry, I was just coming through some other stuff there. No, he's in a similar position to where he was sitting in I think the end of race 1 at Albert Park, where he put the big defensive block on. Bit early start defending at quite this point, at least to that degree. But it's probably about as far up as Lewis might consider himself to be getting. He probably, not for any particular reason necessarily, but he probably also wants to put himself with a bit of a gap to Dane. Especially with the history those two have sort of found themselves in.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. Wedding again playing a double act here, having a look at Lockie Burke every step of the way, also trying to keep the number 35 Liccardo Racing Commodore in his mirrors at all times so he knows where it is. And Burke just starting to pack up a bit here. It's not a huge sprint this time around. You can see there's all sorts of fun and games going on a bit further up this field as we go up to see Redmond still now trying to throw the gauntlet down to Cole Warwick, who's actually been passed by Will Devonish in the last lap. So Devonish has moved the CRE number 15 Mustang through to 3rd place. And for a moment, Warwick was quite vulnerable. Foley nearly ran into the back of Redmond's Mustang there.
Yeah, so Foley pushed in a little hard as well. He's got a good gap to Lewis Wedding, so he doesn't have to quite worry about trying to play both ends of the action. Speaking of Lewis Wedding, he's actually made a pass on Lockie Burke there in the last few corners, so he's starting to range up on the back now of this battle, actually drag the rest of the train with him. So this is about to be one very big train again.
Oh, it still is one very big train right now as we go to Lockie Burke in 8th place. That's where he started. And for Wedding, I think that was quite important to move him back ahead. He maybe just felt he was getting held up a little bit, needed to put the AAR Napa Auto Parts Mustang in a position. Scott Stancliffe with a drive-through penalty. Now, he's been in the lane, I think it looks like. Yeah, he's just exited the lane, so that's a pit lane speeding. Not a good end to his night.
And I think he's going to retire the car.
Yeah,
yep, there it goes.
Okay, be interesting to see what that one was all about there. As Liccardo has a move on Lockie Burke and spins it. And McFarlane gets into him there, and I think he maybe bit off a little more than he could chew there, Liccardo. He just was a bit too hot. He was alongside, but just couldn't pull it up. Replay coming up for that one. Let's have a look, and let's see it from the onboard. Let's see if, from Liccardo's point of view, how that one panned out. Looked like it was going to be a good move. Did he get the door closed on him, or couldn't get it stopped? He's come from a long way back there, and I think that's going to go down as a racing incident. I don't think there was anything that Burke could have done. Liccardo wasn't quite there or thereabouts, and at some point Burke's got to turn in for that corner, and all that hard work is now undone.
Yeah, it's a shame for Liccardo. He was really trying to make something better out of this race. So it's going to be a long fight for him back through this race again. He's probably, at this point, praying for a mid-race safety car to either swap some softs or swap onto some softs to try and really make the best of it so far.
Have a look at this scrap here. Tim Redmond, Cole Warwick, Lewis Wedding. Warwick's actually dropped a couple more spots in this one as well, as they now head down towards turn 10. Warwick was down to 7th. He's now managed to wrestle 6th back away from number 43, Black and Yellow Machine. You're right, this is a nice little, so it's not quite one big long train just yet. The the lead two have actually just started to edge away a little bit here, and leaving Stenberg to fend off the charging train of Brenton Foley and Cope. And I thought for a minute we were getting a safety car there. It looks like it might have been a yellow flag in the last sector, just in the last few seconds. I thought maybe Licato's prayers had been answered.
Yeah, not quite yet. We saw that last time through. Will Devonish to the fastest lap, so he's really trying to blind on the back now. I think he's basically line astern with Rosella. So Rosella, I don't know, with a more conservative strategy for this race for some reason, or just not pushing as hard as Will's can afford to, and Will's actually really trying to make a pass on here.
Oh, and Rosella's defending it at every step of the way as well. So this is lap 5 of 17, ladies and gentlemen, and he's already defending into turn 7. So
yeah,
there's a strategy he needs to make work here. I imagine that's why he's going so defensive so early. He knew that the number 15 was all over him, and that he had to make that defensive effort very early, committed to it early, so there wasn't anything that Devonish could do about it.
Yeah, the only concern for him is if he's trying to run to a number to conserve the tyres, even the act of defending is going to use up more tyre than you would simply driving around by yourself. So there might come a point with Luke where he has to look at the numbers and actually maybe give up this fight, but it won't be just yet.
No, not quite just yet. Oh, big late dive from Warwick, and that didn't quite come off the way he wanted. He skated right through in front of Wedding, and now they're going to argue the point up to turn 1. It probably is going to be settled in favour of Cole Warwick here as they get into the braking zone for 1, and Wedding lets him have it. Knows there's no chance to try and fight that one. Have a look at this one for a little bit of an unusual pass happening down here at turn 10. So Warwick came from a fair way back. Have a look at this. Watch him skate through the corner here. Just skates through, a little bit of curb, Wedding over and under, a little bit of contact with Redmond. Wedding thinks, I've got this done in 1. I need to leave some room on the outside though. And then the other point at the other side of it was Warwick was in the right position for turn 1. So he got away with one there.
Yeah, he is. It's quite lucky with his, well, lucky and well planned with his positioning to get away with that one. I just think it's starting to bubble away again now at the back of this pack. McFarlane's made his way back up through after the contact with Licado.
Well, Stenberg's had a bit of an odd moment somewhere as well too, because Foley's gone through to take 3rd place, and now Colin Warwick's now harassing the back of car 074 for 3rd place. So I'm not sure what happened to Stenberg in that one. And then you're right, there's McFarlane. He just entered shot, and then there was something went on back there, and
that needs to be redressed.
Yeah, I got a funny feeling that one probably does as well. That didn't look good from the angle that I was looking at it from. And we'll have a look at this one now. So it was Redmond and McFarlane, and I think it was Wedding was in there as well, and Brendan Ross tucked in there as well. Let's see what happens here. So Redmond had the high ground off the corner. And actually just looking at it here, sorry. McFarlane clears the throttle, dives to the inside, and that's a redressable incident. That's unfortunately on McFarlane for that one. That's essentially a bump and run. That will need to be redressed.
Yeah, bump and run on effectively 2 cars there. So he's got, well, it's there he got probably up to the end of this lap to do it without getting a maximum level penalty. But I don't think the intent at this point is to redress it. So
Foley through the grass. Massive mistake at turn 5, and he's so lucky to not drop a spot.
Just coming back to the replay. Oh, yeah, you're right.
That's a very high-speed moment for Brenton Foley. And again, well, it's Foley's sideways headings. He had a margin on Stenberg too. That's the important thing. He had a big margin, and just through turn 5. So turn 5 is fine. He was a little bit wide and just picked up the throttle too early. Picked up, snap, and that's the end of it. Just the rear end snapped around at him as he wanted to make the turn in for 6. And look at that train. If he had have been another half a second closer to that train, he was in trouble. He would have been absolutely freight trained.
Absolutely. Speaking of, I think we have just seen Corey McFarlane attempt to redress there. He did actually end up back behind Lewis Wedding for about a corner, and then went and sent back the pass on the run down into the second last corner. So I'm not sure whether that actually classed in the stewardings as having made a meaningful redress or not, but he feels he has, and he's going to crack back into this battle again.
Yeah, well, normally the rule, I think, has been that if you need to make a redress, you've got to let the car in front establish themselves in position before you have another chance to go. Usually that means about 2 or 3 corners to make that happen, as McFarlane now wants to argue the point to the rubber, and he's great to make contact again. They've made contact again. That's twice.
Yeah, so that's risking another bump and run from that one. So I appreciate Corey's got somewhere to be, and clearly there's a lot of energy in his head tonight. But he needs to back it down a step or two. Still a long race to go yet that he can make up some spots here. Yeah. I don't think he's necessarily trying to have a crack for a win here. He's just trying to get some good points. Yeah, and it's going to go the wrong way, I think, unfortunately for him at the moment. I thought for a moment Redmond had just saw him coming and let him pass, but the sweeper is such a difficult corner roadie that you can't afford to get off the line too far because you need to carry momentum. You then need to clip the apex at turn 6 and be in the right spot for 7. So Redmond was in a spot where he really couldn't bash. And there goes the engine on the AAR number 094. That's it, over and done with. And it's anybody for a marshmallow? Yeah, it's appropriate with the Master Food sponsorship because they do have a range of barbecue spices from memory, and that's what they've got now under the hood of the 094. Yep, they're going to need to get a new range. It's going to be called Petrol Black, I think, is what it's going to be called. It'll be in Coles and Woolworths near you in the not too distant future. Here we go, Brenton Foley's now starting to make some headway into this battle that is out in front between Rosella and Will Devenish. So all this fighting is starting to play to his advantage here. He was quicker the last time around by a full second and a half, if you don't mind, Brenton Foley. So this scrap between Rosella and Devenish is really starting to impact this race. It's going to bring the whole field from about first all the way on back to about 9th back together. And that's going to be a really cracking battle to have 9 cars in the train, not necessarily directly fighting for the lead, but in a position where they could benefit from a fight for the lead. The way those guys are racing, a lot of under-overs, undercuts, a lot of switching around is just not the most optimal way to run a racetrack. And yeah, as a result, they've sucked Foley into this. They're going to start that was nearly
here we go.
That was nearly They're going to start sucking Kurt Stenberg into that one as well. Yep, he's about to as well. And Devenish had a bit of a moment. He had an opportunity where he could have made the pass there in turn number 12, and Rosella gave him the space. It didn't quite happen, and now this could get really interesting very quickly. Rhodey, have you seen who the man in 9th place is at the moment? Gee whiz. All right. It's Turbo. That's well, I didn't say he wanted to try and make something good of this race. I thought this might be a bogey track. He's probably benefited from all the sort of chaos and the death that's happened around him. But yeah, he's still. He's about to benefit here again because I think it was Lockie Burke just got into the back of one of the Pixel Sim Sport cars. Couldn't quite see who it was. I think that is the Lewis Wedding Machine, and very nearly picked off another spot, but actually thought better of it. Turmo didn't want to stick his nose in there and then get it taken off despite his face. Yeah, good to see that Turmo is starting to get the overs up now, starting to get into the fight. Fast lap there from Colin Warwick, who been in the lane would have just pitted. Yeah, so halfway through the race back were affected guys who were going to pitting to do it. So he'll be out there probably trying to make it back towards the top 10 by the end of this race, depending on what sort of pacing from the tyres and where the rest of the field are going to go around him. But good to see Tomo up, and so it's good to see that 9-car train who we're actually basically all caught up now. The only gap in the train is the gap between 5th and 6th. Yep, there is only a gap in there. You can see it's just behind Tim Redmond, so he's in 5th place, and 6th place man behind him is Brendan Ross, who's just ahead of that heavyweight battle between himself, Lewis Wedding, Turmo off the back, and then Lockie Burke in there as well. Kurt Stenberg's just sort of found a little bit of a second wind here. He's trying to charge late now as Rosella continues to play defence against Will Devenish. Parking his car in all the right spots, has to be said. Was compromised slightly there, ran slightly wide at turn 4, but that's okay because the next corner goes left. So he didn't really lose a chunk of time here. Foley and Stenberg, they've just got to bide their time here. They've just got to sit there, they've got to wait, and they've got to think about it. But then Stenberg can't afford to wait too long because Redmond's getting quite interested in the back of the TTR number 47 as well. Yeah, at this point they're sort of having to check up because Will's not getting the run he'd like to get past Rosella. Foley's having to check up, but a couple of times there he kneeled in the back of Will's rear bumper because Will just wasn't where Foley wanted him to be. That sort of gave Kurt an opening. Kurt's got another opening now coming out of the end of the gum tree, and Redmond's sitting there back, and he's sort of got the free pick on which line he takes. At one point there were 3 wide through the gum tree, so very willing, and them racing like that is actually going to bring them back off the back of this battle. and actually push them back towards Brendan Ross back in 6th.
It is, and I want to get a read on the times as everybody gets through the line here. So Rosella still heading Will Devonish, and the times across the line. So Stenberg's done a 26.9 on that last lap, 27.0 for Rosella, 26.6 for Devonish, 26.9 for Stenberg, Foley 27.5, Redmond 27.1, Brendan Ross 25.9, and he's now right there. He is literally on the rear, almost on the rear boot lid of Tim Redmond. There he is.
I will say, if these guys all have their tyre strategy sorted out and they're going to make it to the end, this is going to be a cracking finish.
This is going to be probably one hell of a grandstand finish. We could have the top sort of half a dozen cars covered by not very much at all. Have a look at this. This is the action track has really started to produce something here. What a great strategy call by the ASR admin team to turn this into a twin sprint format, change the mileage around so it was a 350k races, and to throw the tyre issues into play here, and to see what's coming of this race right now with still 5 laps to go. Foley's got it locked up. Foley's got it sideways. Foley's gone.
That's a shame. Yeah, I think maybe just a slight lock in the rear. I'm not sure if he got the curb or not there, but yeah, just ever slightly rotation of the car, and once it's that sideways, unless you've got drift steering, you're not getting it back. And
no,
it probably still has the tyre life again, as I reckon these guys are all more than comfortable in their tyres. They're just looking a little aggressive all the same. He has dropped back in. He is now at the back of the train. He's actually dropped back with Turmo. He's actually dropped back a bit off the back of Berkey.
Yep, compression locked the rears. That's all it was. Just on the partway through the phone. Actually did a really good job to keep it out of the side of Stenberg and the other cars that were around and avoid T-boning them, a la Alex Premer and James Courtney. It wasn't at that sort of higher speed, but you know, you get the idea.
Yeah. Now, there was a little bit of contact there coming out of turn 2 with Will Devonish and Luke Rosella.
Sorry, there was actually some more contact. I just noticed there was just behind or in front of Foley. I think it might have been the Pixel Sim Sports cars, and maybe Lockie Burke got a little bit tangled up as well, just as we were cycling back to the replays there. Let's go and have a little bit of a look at that one. That looked a bit strange from the angle on the helicopter, just as we were cutting back to live pictures. So what happened here? So there goes Liz. I'll say, so Ross was off. Oh, Lewis Wedding moved over and didn't realise Lockie Burke was there, I think. That's what that looked like. And then when we were looking at it, it looked like there were cars going off here, there and everywhere, and someone was going through like it was the parting of the Red Seas. That's what my first thought was.
That's lucky for them for out their way. Yeah, no, they're still very willing. It's a good job it wasn't almost friendly fire between the teammates. That said, Lewis, as a result of that, has got up to 5th. Lockie Burke was running 6th. And Foley's already on the back of the train with Rossi. So all these guys have to do, the back 4 there, is just, keep it in their pocket for a lap or two, and they're back on this train again for the lead.
They are. Let's keep an eye out what's going on in front, though, because there's a lead group of 4. So there's a few distinct battle groups here. There's a lead group of 4. That's this group here. Rosella, Devonish, Stenberg, and Redmond, who's just trying to shove his nose up the inside there of Kurt Stenberg on the run to 40. He couldn't quite make that one stick either. Then there's another group of 4. That's the Lewis Wedding, Lockie Burke, Brendan Ross, and Brenton Foley battle, and you can probably throw Turmo into that as well. In all of this as well, Daniel Cox has found himself in the top 10. So this will be a maiden, I think, where is he on the standings at the moment, Roddy? What's his best finish at the moment? Has he made a top 10 yet? I think he might have.
Who are we talking about, sorry?
Daniel Cox.
Yeah, he picked up a 9th at Simmons Plains, but it would still go well to his record just to add to those top 10s.
Absolutely. So that'd be a second top 10 finish on the season for him. Right. Just over 3 laps to go. Rosella's compromised on the entrance here. He's taken the defensive line, but when he slid up to the exit of the curb, he took the line away from Will Devonish that he wanted. Will's going to have to do something unconventional here in the last couple of laps. He's going to have to pick a spot and do something that Rosella's not expecting to do, but I don't expect that to happen. Who was that in the back? Was that Lockie Burke? Did Lockie Burke just dive for the lane? Yes, he did.
I think so,
yeah. Oh, he's got puncture. He's got a puncture, I think, too. Oh, what on earth is happening? He's on the pit lane limiter going backwards down the lane. Yes? No? Maybe?
Let me have a look at that one.
That's
entirely possible. No, I think he was, because he's parked in a very weird angle in the pit lane.
Yeah, he's coming down the lane now, so that was quite...
I think he's hit the limiter and compression locked the rears into the lane, is just kind of committed to it.
All right, here we go. Have a look who's joined the battle now. Brendan Ross is in there, Wedding, and that have all caught up here. So this is coming together like we suspected it was going to in the last couple of laps this race. The lead group of 4 is now a lead group of 6.
That was a 3 or 4 car snooker there. I think it was ultimately Lewis Wedding that got into the back of Tim Redmond, got into the back of Kurt Stenberg, got into the back of Will Devonish. Also made contact with Luke Rosella and all that, and they're all splayed out sideways.
Here's the Brendan Ross view of it. He's the last man in this 6-car queue at the moment. There's just nothing ahead of him. He doesn't know what to do here. I think he's just got to play his cards close to his chest, just sit back and wait for something to unfold, because I've got a funny feeling it's going to happen.
Like, to draw an odd comparison, this is almost like something like the Indy 500, where all you want to do is stay with that lead battle pack until the last caution ends and then run for the lead from there. And that's essentially what's happening here. It's just staying with the lead battle pack and avoiding being the one to fall off or the one to peel off into pits for a puncture. And now we're coming into the last couple of laps. Yeah, we're starting to see some hard racing on. Will's been stuck up behind Luke Rosella all race at this point. And
has he gone by himself? Did he go by himself? I've got a funny feeling he might have gone by himself. And if that's the case, then this is going to hurt him. He's going behind his teammate in Turmo as well, so that's an interesting part to this equation. I don't think there was any contact. I don't think Stenberg was close enough to make it happen. I think he did this on his own.
I just had a look back at the replay. There was a bit of a centre punch into the rear of Will's car.
Oh, okay, this could be critical defining moment here. Let's have another look at it on this replay here. Oh, I think it's hard to tell from that angle. You might be right.
Yeah, from the overhead camera, it looks pretty clear from where I was seeing. It does look like there was a bit of a centre punch there. So potentially some post-race penalty for Kurt Stenberg. I don't think he intends to try and redress it at this point because he's fighting for a podium.
Yep, and that's a shame too, because that was just coming to its crescendo right on the second to last lap as well. So that sort of gives Rosella a free run here at the checkered flag with 1 to go. So how does that play out for the rest of the standings? So Stenberg will be second, although be with a question mark over his head for this one. Tim Redmond now lies third. How's he going to go with fending off the Pixel Sim Sports cars for the last step on the rostrum in this one? We'll find out in the next 3 kilometres.
Yeah, I think at this point it's looking pretty good for Luke Rosella. He's got an ally behind him in Kurt Stenberg, who is going to make the move if he's got the pace. But and Kurt's, that said, considering where Kurt qualified, he's probably happy to run second. I think the only sort of real change we might see here, unless the Pixel Sim Sports car pick their pace up, is actually Brenton Foley, who's got to the back of Brendan Ross and is looking to make a move on his former teammate.
Yeah, he is. He's a bit further down the order. So that's in for the 5th and 6th. They're just coming through the sweeper now. And here is Foley trying to desperately make a pass. He'll probably have 2 more cracks at this, one at turn 10, one at turn 11. And that's provided he can get close enough. So, alrighty, the Sting's gone out of this one. The Sting went out of this one massively in that, 2 minutes ago with Devonish being going off the road at turn 1 and 2. We were set up for that grandstand finish. It was looking like it was going to happen. Unfortunately, it's all fallen flat from my point of view. But we'll have a look and see how it goes to the flag here. So his second race win of the night for Luke Rosella.
He's looking. He's looking.
And no, I don't think he's going to be able to make that one sort of stick here. So car number 1 will get another win for the year, another win for the round. He'll be the round winner overall. There's no question about that one. And Stenberg will finish second. Redmond third, so another podium for Redmond. We've seen him on the podium a few times in the last 2 years, so that's great to see. Good points for Pixel Sim Sports. 4th to Wedding, 5th to Ross, and 6th to Brent Foley. Now, behind that group, Will Devonish recovers to 7th, ahead of Turmo. So there was a swap there because Turmo did go through on lap 16 and took over 7th place ahead of Devonish as he was recovering to the road. So I dare say some team orders might have been in effect in that one for the team's championship. Colin Warwick, after stopping partway through that race, he finishes 9th, and Daniel Cox picks up 10th place for the night in race 3. So a fairly good showing for Daniel Cox tonight. I think he started a lot lower than he thought he was going to, and he slowly progressed his way through the field throughout the night, culminating in a 10th place result. 4 non-finishers. Freakish Corey McFarlane, Scott Stancliffe, and of course Ben Hall was classed as a non-finisher. He didn't take the start.
Yeah, same to. We actually missed what happened to Freakish there, but yeah, Scott Stancliffe picked up the drive-through off his pit stop, and I'm not sure quite where he stopped in that early bit of damage, perhaps. And then Corey McFarlane, we saw the barbecue off the last corner.
Yeah, so that one was fairly obvious with the barbecue off the last corner. Now, just noticing as well, there's a little bit of interest going on there. The Pixel Sim Sports cars are actually what are they doing off the side of the road? I think there was a couple of guys doing burnouts outside of a designated area, so that's going to be interesting to see. The stewards are usually quite strict on how all that seems to operate. The designated burnout pad was actually the old pit complex between turns 2 and 3 for the round, and that was to take people off the circuit so they were out of harm's way and not doing anything on a circuit when guys were potentially come across them and accidentally run into them. As the field trundles back to the lane, and that is the 4th round of this year's championship over and done with. So I think it's fairly obvious, Rody, who our round winner is going to be, and we'll wait to get a couple of people up here to have a chat. Who do you reckon we have a chat with tonight? There's round winner Luke Rosella is going to be obviously on the cards for this one, but who else do we want to grab? Who else caught your eye tonight?
I'd honestly like, to be honest, I think it'd be good to have an added to Cole Warwick, considering missing out on qualifying by about a minute to push back up through the field in a race format that requires a bit of conservation if you're going to run the fast tyre. To get back into the top 10 and then pull out I think it was a 3rd in race 2, and then still finish up the pointy end of this last race. I think it'd be a good natter, as well as probably good chat to Timmy Redmond. I think the fastest of the Kiwis tonight.
So we're going. So we go Luke Rosella. So Cole Warwick's going to come in for this one as well. Yes.
Yep.
All right, and we'll grab Tim Redmond as well for this one as well. Just messaging the drivers now to see if we can get them through. And what do you say we grab Daniel Cox as well, just for something different? I'd like to see how his debut season's actually going. What do you reckon?
Yeah, 100%. We'll get him in as well.
All right, beautiful. So we've popped a message out there in the chat, and we'll get these guys to pop up and say hello, and we'll see what they've actually got to say for themselves. I think a few people are just filtering through into the chat now, so we'll wait for we'll grab them up here and have a bit of a yarn. Pretty hard night of racing, I think, overall. Rody, what do you reckon?
Yeah, it was like it almost didn't feel like Winton the first race. It was very, very, very restrained, and sort of what I expected, considering the tyre concerns that we discussed. And then it seems like they've been listening in race 1 into my slight scoff of this action track not actually being the action track, and well, race 2 happened, which meant everybody was in the walls, including the safety car that ended up in the wall. And then race 3 was sort of a good, happy medium between the two. And yeah, you're right. We sort of bubbled towards some good action at the end there. And perhaps the commentators cursed by mentioning it meant that it actually fell apart a lap or two early. But still a pretty good end of the night, and some pretty hard, fair racing where it was needed.
Yep, I think that's probably a fair summation of how everything's gone there. And now we've got our interviewees for this one. This is what we call the round wrap, because we're not going to interview all the drivers from all the different podium positions in the round. We try and grab a few different people to get an idea of how their night's gone. So, Brody, who do you want to start with? You've got 4 men here. Let's pick one and let's go from there.
We'll have a start with Luke Rosella. Luke, pretty strong night for you in the end. You end up taking 2 wins, and I'll have to actually check the results for how you went in race 1. But altogether, pretty strong night for you.
Yeah, it was pretty busy all night, pretty action-packed. It's just about conserving the tyre. You're a bit perplexed, to be honest, what tyre to run. Race 1, we ran the hards, and yeah, it didn't really work out. I lost time to Will behind Tim, and yeah, it was just too much time to really gain. He was pretty quick in race 1 and got near him at the end, but couldn't get the job done. I took him out, but I redressed it. I wasn't going to win like that.
Good man. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, race 2 was pretty good. I owe a beer to Stenny. He basically parked the bus. Helped me a lot. That was pretty straightforward, but yeah, race 3 was definitely the feature of the night.
Yeah. So I think in the end, that's given you pretty clearly the round win. And I mean, you mentioned coming into this from last round that this wasn't a track you liked. Has your opinion changed, or are you just happy to see it in the rearview mirror?
I'm definitely happy to see it in the rearview mirror. However, I got to drive it the same version again on Monday, and then I got to drive the iRacing one in 2 weeks. So I'm not quite over this absolute s-hole of a track. That's yeah, I just don't like it. It's a go-kart track that's designed for go-karts, not VS Supercars or GT3 racing. It's it definitely helps to block people, especially in race 3. It's pretty difficult to overtake, so that definitely helps you. But yeah, not one of my favourites, and happy to see it gone.
Alrighty, and finally, what's your thoughts coming into next round at Barbagallo?
Complete opposite. Barbagallo is probably one of my favourite tracks on the calendar in Australia. To be honest, it's really fun track. I generally go pretty well around there. Made my debut there 2 years ago, so yeah, we'll see what we can do. We'll press on over the best.
Awesome. Good work tonight, mate, and we'll catch you in a few weeks for Barbagallo.
Cheers, Roddy.
Alrighty, let's swing over now to Tim Redmond, who was the fastest of our Kiwi drivers tonight. Timmy, how do you feel tonight went?
Look, Roddy, I think it was a bit of a roller coaster, to be honest, tonight. There was a lot of action. I think for me in particular, throughout all 3 races. I know the team definitely felt a little bit of pressure, and turns out one of our drivers ended up attempting to pull an iRacing in one of the pits, I think, in the last race there. So I know he's apologized profusely to Matt for that. But no, like I said, roller coaster night. It's up and down. There was a lot of muscling going on. It was really tough to try and keep the car on the circuit. The tire, these tires don't do well on it, to try and last the distance. And we tried a few interesting little strategies to see if we can get any advantage, and particularly in race 1. And unfortunately, my so-called advantage fell off at the end, so I lost a few places. But all in all, it wasn't too bad. I think I had a podium and 2 reasonably high finishes. I forget the exact numbers, but yeah, not complaining. Definitely a difficult one, that's for sure.
100%, yeah. Yeah, generally, I'm sort of talking about already, but the racing itself, how do you feel that went? You think it was pretty hard and fair racing, or did you actually want a bit more action out there?
I tell you what, there was a lot of action. I don't know if we necessarily need any more of that particular type. It was, as I said, there was a lot of muscling going on. It's very hard to pass around this particular circuit. You really have to try and set up corners and go for almost dives. They're not dives, but try and move into positions. And it's hard because you want to turn into the corner, so tend to can be easily pushed out. Is the words I'm looking for.
Yep.
Yeah, like I say, no complaints. So just a good challenge.
Absolutely. And finally, what's your thoughts coming into next round at Barbagallo?
I really liked Barbagallo. I've had some fairly good results there in Super 2 in the past. I did okay at the Supercars one last year. Oh, no, did we race there? I can't remember actually.
I think we would have.
Yeah, I do enjoy the circuit. I do enjoy the sort of close racing that we have there with most of the drivers, and it's just a good fun little baby track. So I know there's a few others in the team as well that are really keen on it. So I think we'll put a reasonable showing.
Alrighty, awesome. Good to see you tonight, Tim. Great work, and yeah, we'll catch you in a few weeks.
Awesome. Thanks, Freddie.
Alrighty, next we'll have a chat to Colin Warwick, and just up and up from the start of the night. Cole, you missed qualifying by all of that a minute, but they didn't really impact your movement much.
Oh, Not really, no. I mean, I probably should have started maybe second place or third at worst. I felt like I had really good pace in the car. Yeah, I ran the hards nearly all the races until the safety car in the second race. Pitted for the softs, and that explains the big drive through the field. But yeah, other than that, yeah, it was pretty action packed. There was a lot going on everywhere. But yeah, it's interesting racing to try and drive to a number, and it sort of hampers the racing a little bit because people get impatient and like bump and stuff. You know, I was probably one of those as well. So yeah, hopefully next round we'll be able to go flat out for the whole race and yeah, see what happens.
All right. Yeah. So after tonight's racing, obviously you spent a bit of time at every end of the pack. What was your thoughts on it all?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, you tend to find out who's the good drivers to race with and who's the not so good drivers to race with. But yeah, no, it was good fun. I mean, anytime you can jump on the sim and have a race, it's always good fun, and that's exactly why I turn up. So yeah, press on for the next one.
Absolutely. You speak out the next one. I imagine you're quite keen for Barbagallo, considering the time you brought it up already.
Yeah. Barb's is a pretty good track of mine. I did pretty good in ASC there a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, looking forward to it. Hopefully I can make it. Sometimes Fridays are a bit up in the air, having a partner and all that. So yeah, we'll see how we go. Hopefully I can turn up if she gives the green light, the big boss. So yeah, we'll go from there.
Awesome. Good work tonight, Cole, and we'll hopefully catch you in a few weeks.
No worries. Cheers, guys.
Before Cole departs as well, Rody, I actually just want to give him a big congratulations as well, and say I know that you're not too far away from having a newborn arrive in the household. I've been through that twice, and I know it's probably not too far away, but on behalf of all the crew at ASR, we'd like to wish you and the missus all the very best.
Yeah, thanks, mate. A couple months to go. Shit, 25 weeks. So yeah, looking forward to it. Was already building furniture and stuff today, so yeah, she's already got me at work.
There you go. I just did the same thing, building a couple of bits of some stairs for my daughter so she could actually stand up at the sink and brush her teeth not a lot long ago, so I know the feeling. But yes, on behalf of the ASR crew, we wish you all the very best.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for that.
Alrighty, we'll let you go on with one of the rookies for this year, Daniel Cox, and let's see what he's got to say for himself with regards to how he thinks his season's going.
Yeah, Coxie. Actually, Nether's already asked that first question, but yeah, just generally, how's your season looking so far?
A bit up and down. I must admit, I was a bit surprised when I got to go and look at this replay and see what happened next. You know, I hear you guys' voices and went, "What am I doing in the commentary booth?" But anyway, that's the thing. I was kind of annoyed because I reckon I had pace, and due to all the Super 2 experience, I sussed out how to drive, you know, onto the front tire, then onto the rear. So I was constantly watching, right, I'm doing too much on the rear and, you know, trying to balance, you know, do the balancing acts. And it was annoying because I think the first race I just got on like near the end, I was catching up for a possible 9th or 10th, or I think it was 9th or something, but hit the marbles on the slow left around the tree, and that just did the most softest spin. I'm just sitting there watching it spin, going, I can't do anything. And so that was a shame. So I think I lost. No, I don't know how. On the first race, I matched my starting position. My second race was kind of annoying because everything worked to plan. I saved the tire in the yellow. You know, I was looking to move up, and I think I don't know if that was where Colin ducked into the thing, and he just blew by me, and I was like, oh, that's a great move. The thing is, when we took him to the chicane, I just couldn't, because I had literally my entire view was his car. I couldn't see the ripple strip, and I think I bumped over it, tried to gather, and I think I got taken out the back. I think it was Dane, but I think Dane came and apologized, but honestly, I don't think that was really his fault. I think I was just blind. So, but you know, I'll let you guys review that. And then it was pretty disheartening to, you know, have everything going your way, the tires, and next you know you're slamming into a wall and you're down to 20th spot. But I have no idea how it came back up to 12th. I don't know what was going on there. And then the third race, yeah, same sort of thing. I think I do have to apologise to Braxton in the first race. I did sort of side-to-side contact after the sweeper, so I did readdress. But I think in the third race, I think he may have dived. That's when I was checking the replay next, you know. So, but yeah, and then I had to do a flick spin, and that just literally did a lap. I think I did 4% just doing that flick spin, and I just went, oh god. So I had to literally the entire second half of that race just driving on the front tires, trying to make them last, and then I had to have Higo was trying to battle while we're on ice skates. I don't know why, but so he was kind of slowing us down because he was slowly making. I was catching up to Termo. I didn't know if he was gonna was slowly catching to Termo, but I didn't know if he'd pitted or not. But it was slowly getting there. But then once we battled, but yeah, I'm sort of up and down. Like I was kind of annoyed because I did have pace here. I had pace and I was tire saving. So just the rotating of the car in all three races sort of put me out because I was saying I've come down, come back down to 20th, and I still managed to gain 2 spots in the third track and third race. So I have no idea how that happened. I don't know if there was a lot of accidents or not. I'm talking way too much again.
Oh, look, it saves me asking the questions if you're already answering them for me. Yeah, you've ticked off most of that. Yeah, you sort of lucked out in the third race. Yeah, there was a little bit of chaos going on ahead. There was an engine fire, I think, in race 3 from memory, and a couple of drive-throughs picked up through the place as well. But yeah, top 10 in the end, which gives you your second top 10 for the season, and points going pretty well. We're just looking at the points now. Actually, you're still maintaining the top 10 in the points as well, which is a pretty good run for a rookie season. What's your thoughts coming into Barbagallo?
I have to look. I don't know. Is it a double header or a sprint?
Double header. Double header.
All right, I might be able to pit then. Hopefully, I don't know. I do all right. I think I do all right at Barbagallo, but once again, it's just all about tire degradation and fuel saving. I know I'm not. I think I'm averaging like a litre a lap past everyone. So I put 100 litres in just to be safe, and I reckon everyone else is probably putting 75, 80 for that race. So I think I've got to figure out how to, not over rev. I've just gotten into the habit of revving when I'm downshifting, but I don't know why. But I can't stop doing it, so it just gets into a habit. But yeah, I hopefully Barbagallo. I'll try and not rotate on a race. So that'll be my goal, I guess. Just stay clean, I guess.
Awesome. No, good work tonight, Coxie, and yeah, I think we're a pretty solid debut season, so there's not much more to get out of it than that. And catch you in a few weeks' time for Barbagallo.
Thanks again, boys. Thanks again.
And finally, we didn't initially plan on giving an interview, but as he rightfully pointed out, he has broken one of the longest stats we haven't actually advertised because we didn't want him to break it just because it was there. But Brendan Ross, after 946 days, you take your next podium finish in a Supercars race.
But who's counting? How good's that? No, tons of fun. I sort of come into the event thinking this is probably going to be the drop round, probably for both me and Lewis, but I think overall we've actually done quite good coming out of this round.
Yeah, I think you averaged something like a 6th place finish there, and Lewis probably about the same actually, which is pretty good, strong pair of results. And yeah, your first time back on the podium step in nearly 1,000 days. And yeah, how do you think the racing went?
I've never been as nervous in like the last year, apart from probably Gold Coast. But that's under different circumstances too. But I made a couple of silly mistakes once I was sort of in third. I nearly could have probably thrown it away. I don't know whether you saw the losing of my brain moments. I think there was 2 moments in that first race, but still managed to hold on. Second race was a bit fun, falling back through the pack, but then third race was tons of fun with the multiple different strategies with Luke on the softs conserving. I don't know what Will was doing. I assume Kurt was on softs too, and then between me, Lewis, and Berkey, I know Berkey was on softs. But that was fun just racing in a big 10-car battle, it was almost. So tons of fun in the end. Can't wait for the next couple of rounds. But I was saying to Lewis too, I was concerned for the 3-race format, whether that was sort of going to bring up what we expected. But I think after seeing that third race, from my point of view on the driver's seat, it was tons of fun. And surely it's going to look good on the broadcast too.
Yeah, it did come out looking pretty good. I suppose as much as I'd like to get your thoughts on Barbagallo, I have grilled everyone else in here about it. My only question is, are we going to have to wait another 946 days before you get your next podium?
Hopefully not. Hopefully it's next round. But road to third last is now going.
Alrighty, good luck on that path.
Cheers, boys.
Alrighty, now that's been all of the interviews as part of the round wrap.
Thank you very much, Rody. You've definitely saved my voice there for a little bit, actually, because I'm still trying to recover from a bunch of things that have been going on and in my throat and stuff as well. Did Coxie even take a breath during his interview? I've just left a little message in the Discord saying it, and you've just probably just reading it right now going, yeah, we know where that one stemmed from. But yeah, I was a bit surprised. I'm like, how is this guy still breathing? Has he not like taken like a big breath or something and then had to, just kept going?
Oh, it's like he's picked up the gift of the gab, or not the gift of the gab, but just the gift of the waffle from me. And Timmy's right in the chat. It's something that people won't see in the YouTube chat, but if you're in the Discord, you'll be able to see the discussion that's currently going on. But yeah, no, look, I'm not saying there's many different ways to do an interview. Coxie's very good to interview because he's already asked himself seemingly most of the questions in his head, and he's come up with answers for them. So you just sort of plug him in and let him run for a few minutes, and then you get most of your questions to the answers you want. Yeah, well, we did. We actually got a fair bit of information out of him too. Like, we asked him one question, and we got the whole race summary, which basically stopped you having to ask questions. Yeah. So, and it's good because I'm less so dead throat. I'm also just dead me. I've been up since 3 a.m. because sleep is a weird environment, and yeah, I got lucky. I caught second wind halfway through the interview, so otherwise I would be passed out on the floor currently. Yeah, well, so you don't pass out on the floor, we will let you go and get a bit of sleep. And thank you very much again for your contributions tonight, Rody. Now, importantly, for everybody watching at home that of course watches this channel and of course the Loose Sim Network, which is where the development series is. While we do have a little bit of a hiatus for the next week because we haven't got anything on, it's going to be a fairly busy week coming up in about 2 weeks' time. We've got round 5 of the GT3 Championship that will be taking place from the Hockenheim ring. I'm actually disappointed I'm not racing that one. I'm actually commentating that one, but I might do a few laps during the week. And then in that week, we're also scheduled to have the development series from Barbagallo Raceway. Now, importantly, Lewis Wedding's unfortunately going to be away for that round, so we haven't confirmed it yet, but keep checking back on the Facebook page and on the Discord as well. The 5th round of the development series may find itself being broadcast through Outworld Broadcasting. We've done it before when Lewis has been away, and we've done it quite well. And it'll be a commentary debut opposite, I guess, what we call the resident voice of ASR, is what I've been designated over the years, for NZ Snipes. He's coming along quite nicely, Rhodey, and if that's the case, and it's me and him, I think we're going to have a good old time. Absolutely, yeah. No, he's come on leaps and bounds from. I mean, it's not like his start was anything to knock either. Jumping in with helping out Floody in the Super Series last year, but no, he's jumped into the Dev Series this year, and he's got a wealth of experience with driving those sorts of cars, having just jumped out of the series himself. Obviously, being able to double up and run in the Supercars tonight, and all the other rounds that he's bound to run, and. Yeah, he's got a wealth of current experience, and unlike me in the commentary box, he actually knows what it looks like to drive a car fast, so he can provide that insight as well. He can indeed. So we look forward to seeing how that unfolds over the next couple of weeks. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching again. We'll see you on the next one. Till then, stay safe, drive safe, and it's bye for now.